We got a hell of a show for you guys today. We've got J.R. Gray fresh off a huge win at the NHRA 4-Wide Nationals in Charlotte. We're going to talk to him and talk about what an incredibly dominating weekend he had. Then we will dive into a conversation with NHRA Pro Stock motorcycle legend Matt Smith before we round out the show with a conversation with the guys from Freedom One Racing, the Powerboat ordeal seen around the world with Ryan and Noah Olah. Let's do this deal. Listen, I've never had any problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way. Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do. I respect the history, I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. The biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred. This is the great American motorsport. Drag racing. Prove me wrong. I'll wait. Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, April 30th, 2025. Hope you're doing well out there around the drag racing world. We've got a great show for you guys today. As I mentioned in the intro, we're going to be talking to J.R. Gray here in about a half hour, talk about his incredible weekend. I mean, absolutely on fire start to the season for J.R. Gray and Mike Severino as part of the Olah Racing conglomerate. We'll then dive into some conversation with the guys from Freedom One Racing who had a viral internet video this weekend where their America One boat went airborne in Lake Havasu during the Desert Storm top speed race. So anyways, we'll check in with those guys, Ryan and Noah Olah from the team and kind of the lead crew guys on the Freedom One Racing team. And then we will dive into a little bit of conversation with our buddy Matt Smith. I'm sure it'll be an exciting conversation with Matt Smith, as it always is. But before I get too far along, JT, Mike, what's up, boys? You doing well?
What's up?
Power Wheels drag racing all over the country in 2025. You're missing it, says Mel Ravo E. Robinson. I'll tell you, man, I've seen a little bit of this Power Wheel racing. Our buddy Brian Mabutis at Eat Sleep Race did their Fast Kids, Fast Life Days event this past weekend. This whole thing is kind of blowing up. When I was at the Motorplex back in November for the Texas Radial Roundup, Barrett Green and Michael Hollis's event at the legendary Texas Motorplex outside Dallas, they had one hell of a Power Wheels race. I'm all for Power Wheel racing. What do you guys think of Power Wheel racing?
I remember we published a picture in the magazine like 15 years ago of some guy, I think it was in Texas or something, like pulling his son into the beams in a Power Wheel. So, I mean, I guess this has been coming for a while, but I didn't know this was a thing. I thought it was just like a one.
I like the downhill power wheels where, you know, they like rack and.
Oh, you're talking about Rednecks with Paychecks.
Hell yes, man.
Rednecks with Paychecks that they do that downhill Power Wheels
drag race. Yes.
But the Power Wheels drag racing, I'm here for it, man. I think it's cool. It's the barrier to entry is much less so than that of junior dragsters. Let's be honest, right? I mean, you can pick up a Power Wheel for a couple $100, buy some batteries, some hop-up kit off Amazon or eBay, and you've got yourself a pretty sick Power Wheel. I kind of dig it, man. I think it's still childish, which is what I like about it. Like they're not super fancy. You know what I'm saying? It's not like a bunch of really exotic stuff for the most part. I mean, it's just people hopping up these toys, and I don't know. I'm here for it, man.
Is anybody putting lithium and like Navicus motors?
There's no telling. Like, I'm sure.
Are these adults?
I'm sure there is a Barbie Jeep with a Tesla powertrain in it. Somewhere.
Is it kids in them or adults?
Oh yeah, absolutely kids. Yeah, young kids. You know, like younger than 8, I would say. You know, and hey man, I'm here for it. If they're drag racing, if they're lining two vehicles of any type up beside one another and racing them in a straight line, I'm 100% here for it. And I mean, honestly, it's this type of stuff that makes me so crazy, is because I see our sport like popping up in all these places unusual places. Power Wheels, RC drag racing. Our buddy Gary Rowe at raceworks.com has his own like timing system. He was telling Mike about this, Mike and I about this at the PDRA Racing Galot last month, that he's got a timing system that's like a scaled down version of a typical drag racing timing system.
He's serious
and he's got
about it.
Very serious, man.
I think
and
he said
me,
he sold all his karaoke equipment and he's no longer
did.
doing karaoke.
Really?
So
he's out of the
so
DJ
he could double
business, man.
down. So he could double down on the RC drag racing setup.
Damn.
Man, I think I'm here for it. I really am. I'm 100% on board with people finding their way to the sport of drag racing any way they can. I think the biggest issue that will, like always, drag racing will click up and it'll be those guys and us guys. And, you know, we've got to embrace that type of stuff. I mean, it's why
Jim Parks,
tried to.
Jim Parks has got a great suggestion right here. I think JT would be perfect for this.
Yeah.
That's your niche right there. And
you
also
could be the
shout out,
Lyle Barnett. You could be the
You
hired
could.
driver of drunk Power Wheel operators.
You know what?
Oh my God.
Actually, we got to hang out with Jim Parks. We got to hang out
Did
with
you?
Jim Parks this past weekend. Yep. Finally made his return to the drink hard racing side of the ZMAX Dragway. There was no car there for him to work on. So he said that he's going to have to detox for a couple of days after this past weekend, but he was back at it.
Yeah, me too.
Well,
Well, that's
tell us
every
about your
weekend
weekend. We'll depart from Power Wheels racing here momentarily. Tell us about your weekend down in Charlotte. We obviously had a ton of stuff going on with Drag Illustrated Director of Photography, Rick Belden, on the property, shooting a bunch of portrait photos for us. But I know you were out there shaking hands and kissing babies. Brett Underwood was out there making deals and talking trash. How was your weekend, man? Tell us about the American Rebel Light Beer 4-Wide Nationals.
I think it was a solid weekend, man. I mean, they really the stands were packed, the pits were packed. I feel like we always talk about it. I think we talked about it last week, even where the 4-wide is well attended. It's never failed really since they started it, but then they really struggle in the fall with the 2-wide race. So again, I think that held course. American Rebel, they did a great job with their activation. They had signage everywhere. They had a JT-esque beer garden party thing going on all the time. But it was a good weekend, man. A lot of good racing and good car counts across the board. And like we said, we got to hang out with our drink hard racing guys and the Top End Club, as always, raising money, doing their auction. I actually brought a World Series of Pro Mod crew shirt, one of our ones from 2023. Brought that for those guys to auction off as part of that deal. So I think they raised quite a bit of money for a draw. I think it went for like $150 or something like that. 120, $150.
I got a bunch of those sitting around. Oh my God.
I know. I have a closet full.
My wheels are spinning.
Don't
right
put them
now.
on eBay. Send them to Rodney. Let him auction those things off.
Okay.
So yeah,
I was trying to fund my Power Wheel here. You know, goddamn.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on. Now we're moving into the
it.
Power Wheel space, and you're gonna have to build one out. It's gonna be, but we're starting with a Barbie Jeep. If JT's driving it, it's a Barbie Jeep. There's no doubt.
No doubt.
Oh man.
But it was a good weekend.
Camo.
Man. And then
Camo Barbie Jeep.
you're headed to PDRA this weekend, Wes. I mean, I think we can go ahead and probably dive into that. What we expect to see out of the second race of the 2025 Redline Oil. Ching. Call Mark Beatty.
Yep, send an invoice.
PDRA Drag Racing Series.
Man, I'm actually genuinely excited for this weekend. I love going out to Virginia Motorsports Park. I think that it's one of the coolest racetracks in the country, especially if you get down there on the top end with all the trees and it's so long. It's such a big venue. I think it's 500 acres of property, 500 acres of ground. And I'm just looking forward to get out in there seeing the whole PDRA contingent, man. I think that we're going to see Pro Boost and Pro Nitrous continue to be, you know, this incredibly high level competition that it has been for a decade now, but it seems to be intensifying. I think there's been a lot of talk around different, you know, who's participating in what class. Is this guy in or is this guy out? And I think we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised to see Pro Nitrous car count up a little bit this weekend. And I think we're going to see an absolute dogfight. And I think honestly, Jim Halsey not coming will inspire some people to come. I know that that's like a pretty tough pill to swallow or whatever, but there's some real truth to that, right? I mean, Mike, you've raced your whole life. I know that we always knew when the hitters were coming, you know, like anywhere we went, we knew when the guys with the latest, greatest equipment and, you know, a track record of success, we knew they were coming, right? And I'm not saying it ever detoured us, but it was definitely on our radar. And then like my
But I think
earliest
that's
experience
I think
in
that's
racing.
changed so much, though. I think that's changed. Like you used to have quite a gap, and I feel
Oh,
like
for sure.
everybody has good stuff now, and then just like across the board. And I think we see it at World Series of Pro Mod when we can gather 85 Pro Mods there. That there's just not that huge gap anymore. I mean, you used to really have some, let's call them field fillers or cars that weren't even considered a Pro Mod necessarily that were running Pro Mod, where you just don't have that anymore. So I agree with you to an extent, but I think that the level of competition and equipment is so high across the board that gap has changed a lot in the last 20 years.
I can't necessarily argue that. I mean, I think it's definitely changed, but I think there's also like levels to this thing. Like I think that the World Series of Pro Mod, the Winter Series, like there's, every product has a life cycle, right? It has its evolution and whatnot. And I recognize where we're at, like we're in the early phases of this. So there's a lot of like desire to be involved and to be guilty by association and all this stuff, which we're very thankful for and humbled by. But I do think that like you get to a point where there's like established domination, or there is, because we did have a handful of nitrous cars that we were trying to get to participate in the Winter Series that opted not to because they felt like they weren't going to be competitive. And that whole conversation is really tough, around our deal because we obviously run all the cars together. But when I look at PDRA, I mean, I think there's probably some guys going, you know what, if he's not there, that's one more spot on the ladder for me to possibly fill. And I just know with, that part of the country, right? Like the East Coast, Southeast, there's a lot of nitrous cars out there. And I'm hoping that we'll see some guys maybe show up that haven't. But, I could 100% be wrong. I mean, we could see, pro nitrous has been a tough battle for a long time now, right? I mean, it's been several years since we saw consistent, full fields. And so I think it'll be, who knows? I'm hopeful that it will actually bring some people over, bring some people into the fray.
What about Stevie? We're jumping in Tim Papp's car, the #1 qualifier, race winner from the previous event. Now Stevie's jumping behind the wheel. That should be pretty interesting.
Man, I think it's going to be great to have Stevie Jackson behind the wheel, especially in Pro Nitrous. I mean, just to have him there in a race-winning car. Tim Papp won the season opener at Galat. Ran really, really, really well. So I think that they'll be a contender. There's no doubt about it. I mean, Stevie behind the wheel and Jeffrey Barker calling the shots on that hot rod. I mean, they've got a great program right now. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them make a late round run. I do think Pro Boost is going to be an absolute dogfight. I mean, it already is, but it just seems like everybody, we talked about this, Mike, coming out of Galat, that it just felt like there was more established momentum coming into the start of the PDRA and the NHRA season, with the Winter Series having already happened. And I just felt like all these guys ran into their regular season and felt like they'd already established like their rhythm and gotten into their routine. I mean, we kind of saw Melanie Salemi a couple of weeks ago talk about how not a lot of it translated, but I do think the ritual and the routine and all those things, they often don't get the attention or the acknowledgement that they deserve. But I mean, I always see the teams that are in the winner circle at the end of the night, it's almost always that group that races a lot, races together a lot, runs the same equipment a lot. So I feel like that will carry into Virginia. And Fletcher Cox diving into the drag race and race car driver role. I think we've all been waiting with bated breath to see if this would actually happen, if he would, make that transition from NFL superstar athlete to a drag racer. And he clearly is. And I can't imagine Pro Street as the end of that journey for him. I think this is a great class for him to be involved with right now. He's got a car that fits it, extremely well with that McCamus built 69 Camaro that was, famously campaigned by Barry Mitchell, has seen a bunch of different engine combinations, a handful of different owners over the years, but it's a tried and true race car that will certainly perform well, I believe, in PDRA Pro Street. So it'll be great to see Fletcher Cox behind the wheel. We've seen him with a headset on, right, for years and kind of gotten accustomed to that, but seeing him in a fire suit with a, climbing into the behind the wheel of a 3-second door car will be a pretty exciting deal, man. So, JT, you got to be over the moon. You're not betting him anything, are you?
No.
Okay, is that over?
He's done with
Not
that.
for a while. Yeah, my wife took my checkbook away.
No, I think it's going to be fantastic, man. I'm looking forward to it. I think they'll have a great race. I'm looking forward to, some good weather. It looks like the weather's going to be fine. So no, man, I'm genuinely looking forward to it. I thought I was going to drag you down there with me, but you've got birthday this weekend. JT's got graduation this weekend. It's Maycember, right? It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
how much
I don't even, it's just like an awards thing this weekend. They got to make sure that they
drag it out.
Yeah, drag all this shit out, so that you can, so it's every weekend. But
yeah, you got to get that those donations coming in and money and this and that, right? It feels like a lot of that stuff is just a way to just drag more money out of you. But yeah, lots going on, man. It's kind of that time of year for sure. And I really think PDRA, it'll be interesting to see. I feel like this what do you want to call it? The Salemi tuned crew, the G-Force race cars, Mike Stawicki, John Salemi, Jim Salemi, that whole crew, those guys really, they were on a roll down there at World Series and on a roll the first race of the PDRA season. So can anyone dethrone them at this point? I think is or early on, or will they keep that momentum up? I think is kind of the storyline in Pro Boost.
Yeah, 100%, because that there's some guys waiting there with bated breath. Like I said that twice in the show, to unseat them. Like Todd Tutterow, the way that team is running in NHRA Pro Mod, if any of that applies, or if they're able to take any of the momentum that they've already established with the Alanabi racing team and carry that over to what they're doing with Kurt Stedding and Ty Tutterow and the P2 quick fuel combination, they could be a real problem. I don't know that it's been a minute since we've seen the absolute ass kicking that we saw this past weekend by J.R. Gray and that Todd Tutterow tuned Camaro, as well as what we saw at the first two races of the season with Mike Stavrinos, his teammate. So what do you make of that, Mike? I mean, it's just, this is a complete, I'm not saying it's out of nowhere. J.R. Gray's always been a contender. We've known Mike Stavrinos to run well, but obviously in different arenas, right? Radial racing, outlaw racing, no time grudge racing. But man, these guys are on an absolute tear right now.
Yeah, I think that they've just got the combination. Obviously, they've got really a brain trust over there. You've got Todd, you've got Ty, you've got Mark Savage that you brought into the fold. You've got all the best equipment. And what's interesting to me is they're doing it with a roots blower on one car and a screw blower on the other. So it's not, I know that there's some data sharing going on there, but just as a group, it's like they've got both of those combinations figured out. And JR ran great in Phoenix at that doubleheader event, was right there. I think he ran top speed at that event and was right there on the ET as well. And he just had low ET, top speed, had it all covered this weekend. So those guys really, JT even made that pick when we were making our picks at the end of the last show. JT and I both were on JR Gray. I ended up switching to Ricky as a little bit more of a dark horse and let JT have that pick. But I just think that no problem, man. They've got that figured out. And they've obviously got the best equipment too. Just really, when all that stuff comes together, and it feels like JR and Mike Stavrinos were also kind of just right there on the cusp. They're guys that were right there, couldn't break through. JR's had a win. I think Mike's had a little bit of success, but kind of just getting his feet wet. And then now you're seeing them break through this season and just kind of gel. So I really, they're definitely the class of the field. I think you saw some other cars step up. Ricky was right there with the nitrous combination as we predicted. I believe he the number 2 qualifier.
Yeah, 568 with a 9 at 251 and change, man.
So anytime he comes back east, anytime he comes back east, he struggled. Still made it to both final rounds on Phoenix, but was burning stuff up. Whereas that screw blower just loves that dry air. We even saw that in Bradenton when we had dry air at the U.S. Street Nationals versus World Series of Pro Mod. When that humidity comes in, everything evens out a little bit more. But you saw everything, I think, even out in Charlotte. You saw Mason Wright jumped up there. I think he was the number 3 qualifier. You saw the Roots blowers a little bit more competitive, and you saw the Pro Chargers be a little bit more competitive this weekend as well. So I think that those weather conditions out in Phoenix were a lot different than what they would typically be running in, and it kind of just threw things off, but it was much more what you would expect this past weekend in Charlotte.
I tell you what, if there was someone who, in my opinion, really had a coming out party that has been long overdue, it was Alex Laughlin. Alex has been making, giving Pro Mod the college try, man. I mean, we saw him come down and fight tooth and nail during the Drag Illustrated Winter Series. He was at all 3 races. They struggled at the first 2, started to turn the corner at the World Series of Pro Mod, got into the show. It was a great moment, a fantastic feel-good moment for anybody who's followed Alex's career, which has spanned, truck and tractor pulling to Top Alcohol Dragster and Pro Stock and Funny Car and Top Fuel. I mean, it's incredible how much racing this young man has done in his short life, but he's turned his attention to Pro Mod. And I guess we also saw him compete a couple of seasons, I believe, in No Prep Kings. So, I mean, he's done it all. And I think that
Factory X,
Factory X.
Yeah.
Seeing him turn the corner, qualify 4th with a 571 with a 6 at 250 mile an hour. We announced last week on this very show that he had joined teamed up with Mike Janis Racing and the Jansen Group, and clearly bearing fruit early on. And I couldn't be happier for Alex. I mean, he went to a final, obviously a final at the 4 wide, but nonetheless had a shot to win it. Really looked good in doing so, unveiled a new sponsor. And I'm just really happy for the guy, because we need guys like Alex Laughlin that are real deal full-time race car drivers that are constantly promoting their brand, constantly, keeping their name in the headlines. We need guys like that having success. So I was just thrilled to see Alex have what I believe was a career weekend in pro modified drag racing. I think that was, obviously J.R. Gray ran the table, continued the domination that started at the beginning of the season in Gainesville for the Olah racing team. But to me, the standout story probably would have been Alex Laughlin.
Yeah, to see the first race out with a new team, and talking about J.R. Gray and Mike Severinos, they raced with Janis the past couple of years and now have gone out on their own, kind of formed a new team, bringing in sort of the brain trust like we talked about, teaming up with Olah backing. To see Janis kind of go in there with Alex Laughlin with a new car combination with kind of pairing all that together and have that success. I think that speaks volumes as well. I don't know where Mike Janis ended up on the ladder, but to see Alex jump up there and go number 4 certainly was impressive.
Dude,
and then how about the cars? Also, I mean, while we're talking, kind of rounding out the field here, I was really surprised to see Ken Q, some of the Tidwell cars that have dominated to start the season and have dominated our winter series, all of a sudden came up and struggled in Charlotte. So that was, what do you make of that, Wes? I mean,
man,
I
to your earlier point, Mike, this Pro Mod has reached a point. It's never been as tough as it is right now. And that's across the board. I don't care where you're racing. PDRA is tougher than it's ever been. NHRA Pro Mod's tougher than it's ever been. Midwest Pro Mod's tougher than it's ever been. And there's just so much energy and enthusiasm around this class. Like, there's just so many top tier teams. That's been the conversation really for the last 4 or 5 months, is that there are literally hundreds of world-class pro mods around the world, and it's kind of whether or not it's your day. I mean, we saw Chip King really running well last year, having turned the corner, so to speak. I mean, he's a guy that raced in the first ever NHRA Pro Mod drag race, and I mean, they've been running well. You can never count out Mike Castellana and Frank Manzo, but I mean, they that found themselves on the outside looking in. Kevin Rittenbark, Holt.
I was riding through the pits at the end of the day Saturday and seeing like Mike Castellana taking the awning down. It was, I mean, they had a great field there. They had a lot of cars, and there were a lot of good quality cars on the outside. But I mean, what do you think? Was it just that change from Phoenix to Charlotte? We could probably ask JR about it.
We should talk to JR about that when we get him on the show, because I wonder what it is. But we got him
here. Well, we do have him, but hold on. I think he's got a call. So
okay. I was going to say that, and before we dive into JR, I'll give a couple of shout outs, but I did want to say that, Mike, don't you think it's fair to say that there have been teams that have historically struggled in Charlotte? I mean, I feel like that track is either one, like Ricky Smith has historically done extremely well in Charlotte, but there have been other teams that seem to have never been able to like get a hold of that place. So I'm not sure.
It's different for sure. Honestly, we raced there one time for like a, not even an NHRA national event. It's different. I know that they struggled with that track, with the concrete
for years,
mix or whatever it was there for a while, tore the whole thing up and redid it. And it's still different. I think a lot of it could come down to the fact that it has so little traffic on it, that really outside of the national events and a couple other small things. They come in and dump dirt on it for the motocross deal. It's a little unpredictable, I would say. The weather is also unpredictable out there. It can go from hot to cold. It was very hot Friday and Saturday. Then Sunday, all of a sudden, was much cooler, much drier. I think those teams were making a lot more power Sunday morning than compared to Friday and Saturday. So it's just I think it's a very you would think going in there that it's just like the Bellagio drag strips and it's this perfect situation, but I think it's trickier. Then you throw in the 4-wide thing on top of it, and even in qualifying, the fact that you're running 4-wide, that could get you tripped up with your routine and everything. And you could see like a a stellar team that has everything together get tripped up by the simple fact that a 4-wide procedural thing. So there's just a lot going on there that's abnormal from your typical event.
I agree, man. I mean, and it's this, and the think that they're going to run 4-wide again during the countdown is really interesting to me. I'm looking forward to hearing all the debate that I think will surround that later this year. But real quick, before we bring on our first guest of the day, let me take a quick second to remind you that each and every episode of the Wes Buck Show is made possible by way of our friends at Stroud Safety. Stroud Safety is known for their top quality racing safety equipment, from drag chutes and seatbelts to fire suits and blankets, all 100% made in America. Log on to StroudSafety.com today and make sure you tell him we sent you. Well, we've got him in the green room, guys. The man of the hour. I texted him over the weekend and I told him this is one of the most impressive performances. Sheer domination from start to finish, kind of rounding out 3 races of sheer domination from the Alanabi racing team. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for the one and only JR Gray. What's up, JR?
How's it going, guys?
I'm the only one clapping, but they're supposed to clap.
Clapping.
We go through this every week.
I clapped.
We'll
Run the
take
tape back.
Oh, JR, congratulations, man. I mean, why don't you just kind of take us through the weekend? You guys have obviously had a strong start to the year. You told me earlier in the year, like, I know I've got a hot rod now. Like, I've got a real fast car. And here we are, winner's circle at the 4-wides, your second NHRA national event win. I mean, just take us through kind of the early season so far and how you've been, feeling, kind of building your own team.
Yeah, we were, starting off, I just set realistic expectations. I'd kind of, just couldn't get it going the last couple of years. So I was expecting us to be able to, show up to Gainesville. Honestly, I was just planning on saying, let's qualify. And then from there, I was thinking we'd build on the Phoenix, but we, and get a little bit better. And by the time we got to Charlotte, I figured we'd be cooking with some steam. But honestly, we just bypassed all that and just went straight into the frying pan, and I mean, it just blowed past all my, honestly, it's kind of like a dream a little bit. And I'm like, man, to be at this level and to be able to string, we have 15 low round ETs in professional racing right now. Out of our team, me and Mike Stravino, one of us was low ET of every round for 15 rounds in a row now.
That's incredible.
And that's 2 power combos. That's not like we just got the Pro Chargers over here or this or that. We got a Roots and a Screw that have probably, I didn't do the math, but let's say they split down the middle. We got 7 low ETs with a Roots and 8, fast passes with a Screw.
Wow.
But
We were talking about that, actually. We were talking about that before you came on here, that what's one of the impressive things about your team is that you've got 2 different combinations. You got the Screw and you got the Roots. Talk to us a little bit about the thinking behind that and how that kind of came together for you guys to team up and have one of each. And how does it work with Tuttero, Todd Tuttero, and Mark Savage, like as far as splitting those duties, and what's it been that's allowed you guys to have success with both of those combinations?
Yeah, I would say, even trying to answer that a little bit, you got to throw KH into it. KH is, organizing this. He pulled these people, he pulled everybody together. He got everybody on the same team to work together and move forward, and some of that, they decided to leave, KH and them and Todd. They wanted to leave the Roots on the one car, and then obviously me and Mark and all of us wanted to put a Screw on my car. So it was actually to me, it was just a perfect way to go about it. And then on top of that, yet again, just backing up on how they performed. And what was your next question, Mike? There, I'm sorry.
Well, is there
Just-
I mean, is there
just
for
as
you?
far as like the you know, the roles of the team, I kind of see is there any like you know, is Mark dedicated to your team, and you know, whoever's tuning Mike is dedicated to that team, or is there data sharing, and how does that work when you've got two different combinations? Because I mean, the idea behind a team would be data sharing for a lot of it, to have a very similar combination and share that data. So how does that work between who's calling the shots and the data you guys are seeing, and how you're implementing that across the entire team?
Okay, Mark's on my car. He's crew chief on my car. Todd is crew chief on Mike's car, and then they work together side by side throughout the day on every adjustment that we do. So you don't have you got two brilliant minds, and they're both either agreeing or disagreeing or compromising to make what changes we need to make to go down the track. And then they also come from different realms. I mean, it's all drag racing, but you think Mark, but you got Todd with all the decisions and the way he likes to run his program, and you had Mark over here with all the combos and the way he wanted to run his program. So, as you forge both of them together, you really truly come out with something unique, and that's why I feel like our performance has showed is from both of them colliding together and coming together and forging one sword.
Dude, I mean, if you take those two people, J.R. Gray, I mean, one thing I want to talk to you about, and I want you to reflect on this as well, but what's it like, I mean, seeing where you've come from and where you started racing, right? Grudge racing at these nitty gritty racetracks. I saw one of your posts over the winter when you were in Qatar hanging out with KH, and it's like, what's a South Carolina boy doing in the Middle East drag racing? I mean, reflect on that a little bit, like how far this whole deal has come. I can't imagine you ever thought there would be a time in your life where you would be racing at this level, having the success you're having, working with guys like Mark Savage and Todd Tutterow. I mean, Todd Tutterow's on the Mount Rushmore of pro modified drag racing. I mean, what's this whole journey, if you can, how do you kind of encapsulate what this experience has been like?
It's truly like it's a dream. I mean, in reality, it's a dream. We've seen all the people we looked up to were over there racing, let's say 10 years ago or however long the timeline goes. And they were over there. And honestly, when we come from there, I never seen myself going to that level. I mean, I never even thought about Pro Mod. We always laugh about it, which I have a too long of a story to go into here of me when Pro Mod was first mentioned into my life and me actually ending up in the Pro Mod. But, going over there was just
you can tell that story. We'll make time.
Okay. A dream come true. And, it's just, that's how I just put it. It was just, surreal, real. You get over there and you're with KH, which, he has the recipe for championships. He got multiple championships on every level. So, and then he's passionate about it. And, so when you talk to somebody like that, you ask questions, he gives you a knowledgeable answer. And, that's, part of everything. I just, so appreciative of having, a passionate sponsor, or not partner, passionate partner, owner. I mean, he's really all in one to support us like this,
No, it's a great thing to see. I can't tell you how excited I have been just to see KH back in the sport at a high level and back involved with pro modified specifically. I was always worried because I saw it happening, right? Like I was running around with KH a lot back in those days, and Mike and I would talk about it all the time. Like, we got to keep him away from these nitro guys. Like, we got to keep him away from that world. We can't be letting him go to any NHRA races. We got to stay going to ADRL races and stuff like that because we don't want him to get, led astray. And he didn't get led astray. Of course. I mean, he actually went over and won world championships and had a tremendous amount of success with Alan Johnson and Sean Langdon and Larry Dixon. I mean, it was a fantastic thing, right? But at the same time, I love seeing him involved and seeing these new players, kind of sticking to their roots in what brought them to the sport. And that was pro modified. I mean, pro modified was what piqued Khaled's interest on day one. And to see him kind of sticking his flag here makes me excited about the future.
Well, his heart's Pro Mod, and beyond that, the international drag car language of fast cars is Pro Mod, in my opinion. And it's just still amazing. Like it's, you end up over in Qatar. I'm over here sitting here in Qatar, going to these restaurants and eating, and I'm over here watching this drag racing. And you asked me about it. I mean, it's just, it's a dream come true. It's just, I can't say enough. I love Qatar. I can't wait to go back. I mean, restaurants, food, everything's just, everything's just so nice. The drag strip, the surface. I mean, I don't care where you're eating or hanging out. Everybody's nice. Not so many people. I mean, it's just a beautiful place to just, I mean, I couldn't say enough about that. And, to be the same places when like Stevie and everybody was going up to, and we were looking up to him, and then, everybody was shipping cars over there once a year. And you're just like, I mean, and then these pro mods and big semi trailers, and you're looking at all this stuff like, man, look at this. And, we're bumper pulling, you want to go back to it. We're bumper pulling, and I got stuff stacked in that trailer like Tetris, just to get all my supplies. So we're ready to do damage when we get there back in the day. And then now to be rolling up in, 56-foot race car haulers with support trailers pulling up with us, and that we got everything to make sure we can make it happen. I mean, I'm a drag racer at heart. So, this is every drag race driver's dream. I mean, you're not going to talk to one racer that says, this is where where the dream ends, type deal. And, I'm sorry, I'm lost for words, but I'm just trying to describe it.
No, dude, I mean, that's what we want. We want a raw emotion, man. I mean, and I think you're exactly right. Almost every drag racer, the dream is always to have a sponsor, right? To have some support, have someone to help make it a little easier and make it a little more manageable. And we obviously know that you've spent decades chasing the drag racing dream without that being the case. And I think it's exciting when you see, someone rewarded for pouring their heart and soul into the sport of drag racing, and then all of a sudden someone comes along to help them make it a little easier and make it more manageable. It's a fantastic thing. On the heels of all this success, JR, I feel over the course of the last couple of years, we saw you kind of quiet up. Just being honest,
Yep.
you kind of started to lay back in the grudge racing world and the radial tire world. You were setting records, blowing the scoreboards down, winning these big money grudge races, and we were constantly hearing you talking trash. Do you think that era of JR Gray is just behind us because you're in a higher level scene now and there's more eyeballs, or what's your kind of take on that? Because I got to be honest, now that we see you leaving first and setting low ET 15 rounds in a row and everything else, I can't imagine you're not walking around with your chest puffed out a little bit.
I can get him to start talking some shit. I guess.
Get us to the bar. Get us to the bar at the hotel in Indy, and then things will change.
Things already started changing a little bit. Y'all just hadn't seen it. And if I was at my race car, well, I don't have it with me, but I broke out a new helmet this weekend, which I wish I had pictures to show you. But it's actually I had it airbrushed to match the car and everything like that. And on the back of it's Jason X with the picture I always had on the back of the ribs holding the axe.
Yeah.
And I got a picture of the guy on the ground is Justin Bond, airbrushed in the back of my helmet. And me and him
awesome.
have been beating and banging back and forth for a couple of years. But, it's a different level. I suffered a little bit with, how we talk smack coming from the outlaw world was real hardcore. So over here, you can't necessarily slip up and be hardcore. So you're kind of trying to say, I would say, let's use PG-13.
Yeah.
And then yet again, you got to kind of be appropriate, which, use the same kind of rulings and appropriate when you do talk trash. But, I got beat into submission. I mean, just honestly, it wasn't nobody's fault, never pointing the finger. I mean, we just went and we just couldn't get, whether it was me or whatever it may be, we just couldn't get our cars figured out over the last 2 years. And it got to be to where, you just couldn't. I mean, heck, you've seen how many bets have I lost in a row now? I mean, honestly, I probably lost the last 8 bets that we bet until I just finally went in submission, because I was always big on saying, when we were grudge racing and stuff, I'm going to talk crap before we race and after we race. I'm not going to be the guy that just talks crap when we get out there and win, because, I do appreciate the guy, but I always respect the guy that has more confidence up front and's not scared to say it. And that's how I came from. And that's how I was always did. But once you're beat into submission so many times, you just learn to shut your mouth, because you start looking like you definitely start looking like an idiot. So
Well, man, I felt like we've just seen JR Gray go, rise through the ranks, so to speak. And it's cool to see that. And I hope you keep some of that edge, because I agree with you. We've got to keep it a little bit more. You go to some of these grudge races, you go to Big Jake's down in Dallas, it is not PG-13. It's not even remotely close to PG-13. But I appreciate what you're saying. But I do hope that we see that edge back, because one of the most exciting things about seeing Stevie Jackson come into, NHRA Pro Mod, yourself come into NHRA Pro Mod, Lyle Barnett come into NHRA Pro Mod, these guys that had kind of built their brand on the back of outlaw racing and grudge racing, radial tire racing. It was great to see you bring some of that, but it has kind of dissipated. We lost Lyle. He's been focusing on 8th mile in recent years, or in this year, excuse me. Stevie's serving more of a tuner, crew chief role. You're kind of one of the guys that are still holding it down for the dudes that have had NT written on their window. So I think I want to see some of that edge. I hope you don't lose it altogether.
Well, and the honesty about all that that's passion. Even no matter how you look at it, whether it's X-rated or PG-13s, that the passion comes out in people. You try to make people move in directions they don't want to move and mess up in a grudge race, and then that passion causes everybody to work harder. It causes you to figure out how to go faster. If you need a new part, figure out how to get that part. It drives everything, the rivalries, which creates, passion, rivalries, and then the rivalries of beating and banging, and two good race car, drivers are going to beat and bang. I mean, and that's what the fans want to see at the end of the day. Sponsors necessarily want to see something different than the fans, but sponsors also, it's got to be a real healthy mixture to make it all form together. And I've been a little lost at trying to find my way. I'm never really get embarrassed, but I'm not going to say I haven't embarrassed myself on camera. I just don't watch them episodes no more.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. Don't watch those videos. That's Mike and I's rule. We don't watch them. We don't watch our own stuff, man. Never watch our own stuff. But last kind of question, or go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was going to ask, just going back to the competition in NHRA and the combinations and everything we talked about. What do you see? Like what's changed with the NHRA program this year? We talked about some of those guys that are no longer there. It seems like it's a little bit different approach to it this year. The way you're approaching it, you're in the screw blower versus the roots blower that you've been in NHRA competition the last few years. Just like the overall health of the class, we saw it. That going out west to Phoenix, having the double up there, come back to Charlotte. You've got large car count. Like, just talk about like the rumble in the pits of NHRA Pro Mod and where things are now and where you see it going the rest of the season.
Well, the rumble in the pits right now is all from the Pro Chargers. At the end of the day, which I have no love lost for a Pro Charger combo. I mean, I love everybody, but I don't feel for you. Like, y'all beat me over the head until I was, bleeding out. And they'd put rules on you, y'all come right back and run faster. And I'd be like, where? And it took like 3 years to get y'all wrangled in. So like, they're basically the grumbles in the pitch right now. I personally think, if you take, we got a roots and a screw. If you pull them out and look at the rest of everybody's times, they're pretty much in a good window. We just got something, got it tuned in a little bit better. And can everybody get there? I believe so. And, but the grumble in the pitch right now, the only thing I've really heard is out of the Pro Chargers saying they need more. But and yet again, I'm not the tuner, I'm the race car driver. But hey, y'all won 5 races last year. So, 5 out of 10.
They do seem to be a little, they were behind big time in Phoenix, but I think that a lot of that is the dry air out there, and the screw blower really takes advantage of that. But you did run 256 at Charlotte this past weekend. I mean, you guys are making big power. It seems to me like you guys have taken a step forward. I mean, it's obviously a new team, but that combination has taken a step forward. And so it's going to take a little while for maybe the other combinations to catch up. But we did see the Pro Charger perform a little bit better in Charlotte than they did in Phoenix.
Correct. And testing they did too. Honestly, in testing, I left testing on Tuesday afternoon and we were done with mine. By Wednesday, because I was watching the app, I had already seen the cars run what I had ran in testing. So to me, I'm like, well, it's a drag race. We're going to show up and drag race. And, honestly, we just showed up and, and just put it together a little bit better and went a little faster. I
I think it's a tough case to make, like, because at this point in time, the only play would be what, to give him some of that gear ratio back, or
maybe some weight off, because I
take
think
some weight off.
I think the Pro Charger is actually heavier than the screw blower in NHRA. Am I right?
Honestly,
I think they are. I haven't honestly looked at NHRA Pro Mod rules in so long.
Well,
but
they gave them a little something, in my understanding, and I could be wrong, but they gave them a little something from Phoenix to here, which yet again, I'm like, wouldn't y'all wait until we get back to some normal air before we start making some rule changes?
I think they allowed them more RPM on the Pro
the rev limiter
itself. Yeah.
And I'd heard that was one of the tuners' ideas, which don't know. I'm not going to mention no names because yet again I didn't quote it, but then all the car owners were telling me that wasn't going to help them. So yet again, they did run better numbers in testing, so I would think it helped out a little bit. Now whether they're going to live or not, I don't know.
NHRA Tech makes.
They definitely, we'll see it. It's too early to tell. We're only technically 4 races into the season at this point, but it's kind of too early to make that call. But you got to have all those combinations together. I mean, that's a really recipe for success for what we try to do on the 8th mile. It's probably as challenging on the quarter mile, if not more. But you don't want to make it an all screw blower and roots blower field. So I think they'll get it figured out. And you still got a handful of Pro Charger guys out there, and then the one lone nitrous guy.
Do you ever miss nitrous racing, JR? Like, just seeing how much time you spent doing it?
I miss it, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm all blown.
No, his answer no. The short answer is no.
We knocked a lot of pistons in for a long time, so.
No, it's understandable, man. At this point in time, it's hard for guys to get excited about having to work so hard. Drag racing, no matter what level you're doing it, is a big endeavor, in terms of how much work it takes. And then you add into the fact that you're probably going to blow your motor up, multiple times throughout the course of the weekend. And it's pretty hard to get excited about it. But I mean, it does seem like nitrous racing has evolved in its own way too, because I go to these PDRA races and I can't get over how good those cars run without tearing stuff up, but there's just that window.
I think they're tearing them up a little bit, and I know Ricky had to put his backup motor in at least at some point throughout the weekend. So they're still, to run well, they're still tearing them up, still running.
That's
really
right.
hard.
And like, even if you see Jason X come back out one day, it'll probably have a big screw blower hanging out the hood, wall to wall, and the fender wells or something. And we'll see if I can hang on to the wheel.
You've got an extra one. I think we hadn't seen your Outlaw car much this season. When do we expect to see that again soon, and what's going on with that?
Well, we had all agreed on that we would get the NHRA program ironed out and B100, and then we'd move on into getting that car together. For World Series of Pro Mod, but we need to get some laps in. Obviously we do not plan on coming anywhere, which I know it's known Bracer's idea, but we're going to be, when you see us roll through the gates with an 8th mile car, you already know we're ready. I'm not showing up anywhere, no more, no place, no how, if we're not ready. So if the 8th mile car isn't already running where we think, where we know it needs to be, not where we think, where we know it needs to be. I won't even run through the gates. We're going to qualify in the top 8, the World Series of Pro Mod. And if we can't do that, then I'm not even entertaining. I mean, forgive me, but you know what I'm saying.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
Top 8, man. That's stout.
And that's just how it is. We got to run through the gates. We represent, Cage, Qatar, Al Nabi Racing, and that's how we're going to roll in. We're going to roll in and we're going to, put it up on the board.
I'm excited, man. I hope that's exactly the case, man. We'd love to have you guys be a part of the Winter Series, man.
We haven't brought it back up yet, but initially, we were hoping to, start kind of putting them cars back together, around the summertime when we were off. But, we've been real busy. I mean, you got to think we put this whole program together in 7 weeks. I'm talking from bare race car trailers, no parts in them, in 7 weeks, and then we hit the road and went NHRA racing. So we've been doing a lot of work and a lot behind the scenes, but I think by the end of the year we should have a good 8th mile car running too.
I'm excited for you guys, man. We need you over here in this side of the fence. We got to get you back in one of these outlaw cars, brother. Well, JR, we're looking forward to seeing you carry this momentum. You, Mike Stervinos, the entire Olah racing team carry this momentum into the Route 66 Nationals coming up in Chicago, Illinois in just a few short weeks, man. And then you do guys get a little bit of a break, right? You hit it hard through May and June. We got Chicago, Bristol, Richmond, fairly close together. And then you're off until Labor Day, man. It's that'll be nice.
That will be nice. And like I said, so we'll be doing some more preparation and getting organized and, and going from there. And so anyhow.
We appreciate you, JR. Congratulations on a hell of a weekend to you and the whole team, KH, everybody involved. Our buddy Jason Sharp, I was texting him over the weekend too. So, hey, man, we're happy for you guys. And it's good to see Olah back in the winner's circle.
And we got we do have the international team. I mean, we got the Middle East, we got Canada, we got Australia, we got a little bit of everything that
you guys are far flung. It's pretty crazy, man. It's pretty crazy. Well, stay out of trouble. And thanks for spending some time with us this afternoon.
All right. Y'all keep up the good work and thank you.
Appreciate it, brother. Talk soon.
Bye.
Hey guys, I want to take a quick second and remind you that each and every episode of the Wes Buck Show is made possible by way of Redline synthetic oils. Redline has a reputation with racers and hardcore enthusiasts for creating products that protect and perform better than any on the market, and they've been doing it since 1979. Whether it's your race car, your motorcycle, your tow rig, or your lawnmower, when you think about lubricants, you need to think about Redline. For more information, log on to redlineoil.com. We've got a big guest in the green room. JT, Mike, we've been talking about this all weekend. Was hoping we could pull this off. And, if you've been living under a rock, perhaps maybe you haven't seen this, but a really incredible happening out on Lake Havasu during the Desert Storm Shootout, another top speed race for drag boat or for boats. This has it's a worldwide phenomenon at this point. And being a Missouri boy growing up in the Midwest, I mean, JT and I, every summer, the talk of town was the shootout at the Lake of the Ozarks. I mean, it's what that entire area rallied around this happening every single year. And
I know
it was kind of crazy.
Lake of Ozarks or Lake Havasu.
You need to come down
except
sometime,
for what
Mike.
may have been seen on VHS tapes that circulated in the.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that either. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to plug in my laptop.
But
those
it was
Girls Gone Wild videos.
Different boating, different types of boats, different people on those boats.
Those were pontoon boats by and large. Well, no, there was a lot of power boats involved in all that.
That's all I knew about it. I'll never not associate Lake of the Ozarks and Lake Havasu with that. It's just ingrained in my brain.
No, there's nothing wrong with that, man. And there's still plenty of partying that goes on at the Lake of the Ozarks. But I'm not a historian of boat racing at all. And maybe our upcoming guest can fill in some of the blanks for us here. But it does seem to me like the shootout at the Lake of the Ozarks was kind of this iconic singular happening that happened in the boat community where all eyes turned to the Ozarks to see who was going to go down there and set top speed. And it's not just, there's an overall top speed, of course, which is like the king dingling of the whole deal, but there's also guys out there with pontoon boats, all these different types of boats trying to set top speed. People camp out. There's boats lined up for freaking ever. And the whole deal is just it's a magical experience. If you've not been there, I encourage you to go. I actually asked my wife, I said, hey, what are we doing August 23rd, 24th or whatever? Like, I want to go to the shootout. But these events have popped up in other places. Lake Havasu, a well-known power boating spot, plays host to the Desert Storm Shootout, which the Freedom One racing team was involved in. And of course, this is not the way we want to be getting to know these guys, but it was honestly what drew my attention to what they were doing. Formula One. Oh, yeah. What these guys have been doing, Freedom One Racing, is really pretty incredible, to be honest. This whole thing is rooted in raising money. And I think that's kind of a cool storyline. They're based out of Kansas City, founded in 2022. They got a big monster skater boat with a couple of twin screw-blown Noonan-powered Hemis. And that's what really drew me to it, because it seems like a lot of these boats have gone to turbines or twin turbo setups or whatever. And whenever I started to dive into this build and I recognized, like, this is a Hemi with a screw blower on it. It's a couple of them. These guys are right up our alley. It just felt like a perfect opportunity to maybe chat with them. And I talked to some of the people that are involved with the team. I've known Brian Robbins for a long time, Shane Tecklenburg, some guys that were close to the situation. I started doing some reach outs after their big blowover incident, where they still ran incredibly well and won the event and left with the trophy, but obviously have some work to do. JT, roll the clip while we get these guys queued up. No, this was the holy video. Yeah.
I mean, I could have cut it out, but hell, I say it all the time too.
It's
That's
incredible how that
insane,
thing.
dude. It's got to be
heights
wild
like
to be
that.
sitting there watching that and then just see that happen.
I can't imagine what it felt like for these guys' family and everybody that have been working on this boat and spent the last however long putting this project together. I mean, this is something that's been in the works for years, and to see all your hard work and effort and two people you care about very dearly flying through the air like that, I can't imagine how tough that was. JT, don't you have the in-car?
Yeah. I mean, we see it a lot in drag racing, right? I mean,
And I know if you're paying attention at all and see what this thing does when it makes the move from 100 to 200, I mean, the early acceleration, Mike, is impressive, but if you watch when he goes wide open, check this out.
Well, that's one of the questions I want to ask these guys, because we think of it as in drag racing terms, but this thing, I think it's got to live a little bit longer than even a quarter-mile run, right? I mean, isn't this thing like
Oh,
3/4 of a
100%. They're
mile
racing
or
there
longer, so
3/4 of a
that's-
mile. Some of these
they
events
run
are a
a
mile.
quarter track.
you got to get this thing to live for a much longer time?
So watch them. So watch the move from 100 to 200 here. Like the way it accelerates is. I mean, look at this. It really sounds good. This is where shit goes south.
You see their heads go forward, just the
And it's
the
like
change
it's
in
like
G-forces.
165 when they hit there. I mean, that's
Yeah.
pretty wild.
Yeah, the whole deal was absolutely terrifying. But in one way, this is one of the curses of motorsports, I think, in so many ways. We've talked about this for years on the pages of Drag Illustrated and on the website and here on this very show. But you either got to win or have a spectacular crash, and there's really no in between. I mean, if you want to get headlines and you want to get mainstream media, those are pretty much it. And honestly, the crash is probably going to perform better. And I'm glad they got the win, and I hope that they have some, level of satisfaction out of that. But at the same time, a really tough weekend for these guys. Let's give it up for Ryan and Noah from Freedom One Racing. Guys, what's going on? Welcome to the show.
What's up, guys?
Hey guys, thanks for
How you
having us.
doing?
Thanks for joining us, man. I appreciate you guys hanging out in the green room there while we wrapped up with JR Gray. I mean, he races a car in Quarter Mile Pro Mod that has a very similar engine combination to what you guys are running in this boat. Before we dive into some of the technicalities, why don't you just kind of introduce yourselves and let us know how you fit into the Freedom One Racing team?
So I'm Ryan. I've been close to the racing industry for 15, 20 years. I know a lot of people in the industry, a lot of people around here, good friends with Larson and a lot of the guys that run Shane Tecklenburg, and just have a lot of knowledge. I'm a fabricator by trade, so I do a lot of stainless steel and aluminum stuff, a lot of headers and intercoolers and turbo kits and stuff like that. But just been around. It's a passion of mine. I love racing. I've done, drag racing. I've had a sprint car, some small tire stuff. My family did quarter mile drag boats, a long time ago when I was young, and they drug us all around the country when we did that. And it's just something that was ingrained in me at a young age. And we just love what we're doing.
Noah, how about you? How do you fit into this whole deal, brother?
Well, growing up with him, pretty much same boat, pretty much. Been around motors since I can remember. Being 13, 14 years old, building cars. I'm an iron worker by trade, so I'm kind of head hard, and I just grew up around this kind of stuff, and to be able to work on something like this and see what it's come to, it's spectacular, to be in a position to do something like this.
I mean, so tell us how this the Freedom One Racing program came together, because it's not like you guys got together and bought a Ford Mustang Fox body and started building a badass 347 stroker, guys, and we're going to build us a hot rod. I mean, you built a 40-plus foot skater with twin Hemis in it. I mean, this is the latest and greatest Mark Mickey transmissions. Like, this is no joke. This is as badass of a boat as you can get after. I mean, how did this? I mean, this is a big departure, I would think, from building a turbo kit for a street car.
Yeah, so this is basically the first 3/4 mile pro mod drag boat that's ever been built. I mean, it's ever even been thought of. So To be honest, it's been talked about for a while in our circle. So, we're Lake Ozarks people. We're close. This is our hometown track. So we've seen, the shootout stuff and we've seen what's happened over the years. And when the Spirit of Qatar boat set the record on a 1 mile track at 2:44, I think it got a lot of people thinking that maybe that someone local should do something and try to bring that record back to the United States. So since they shortened it up to a 3/4 mile track, American Ethanol, they set it at 2:21. And we thought that, there's probably a way we can do this with our knowledge in our group, the team that's involved in this. We can probably beat that 2:44 in 3/4 mile if it's done right. So a couple years ago, there was actually a phone call between a couple friends about bringing that record back. And it was kind of a joke at first, but it quickly turned into a reality because the guy that kind of funds this really thought it was something that needed to be done, and he had a passion to make it happen. So that's when we started talking power, boat, specifics, how do we make this happen? And that's how we landed on, hey, let's go all out. Let's literally do the same thing we did in the 1/4 mile drag boats, but let's bring it to the powerboat industry in the 3/4 mile. So that's when we decided, hey, let's go, big power. Let's go blown alcohol. Let's go Noonans, 4.9 Hemis. Let's do, PSIC rotors on them. We want as much power, as much boost. We went with dry blocks for the strength because obviously these things don't run for 4 seconds. They run for 30 seconds. So a tune-up is obviously insanely critical, but let's do transmission. So we've got 3 gears. Let's not do gearboxes. Let's make a light boat. Let's not do a 52-footer, So that's when we talked to Pete at Skater Powerboats, and in our opinion, they build the most durable, fast boats around. It's something that I don't think a lot of other companies, really had an interest in, but Pete jumped all over it when he heard about what we were doing, and he wanted to be involved. And to be honest, I think he built the perfect boat. I don't think it's there's nothing he did that caused what happened over the weekend to happen. It was, this boat can go. We know for a fact, we actually got some data off the ECUs, and we know for a fact this boat will go 250 plus in 3/4 mile. Like, we pretty much guarantee it now. We just got to have time to figure it out.
We just got the
what do you think? What do you think it is that's going to keep that nose down, or what contributed to it? I mean, for sure, just the sheer wind force, but
testing would have a lot to do with it. I mean, this was our 5th pass on the boat.
Right.
First time we had all 3 gears working properly. We picked up 600 horsepower on each engine over the winter. It's just seat time. It's literally just seat time. The drivers need a little bit more time to figure out what to do in the situation, how much they need to bury the nose, how much they need to keep it out of the water. It's, a lot of the test passes we made, it was, stuck in 2nd gear. It was down on power, and the boat was real wet. So it's kind of easy to keep that stuff from happening. But this event was the first time we had it all dialed in. I mean, that thing was screaming. You can hear in the GoPro footage from the cockpit, when it shifted into 3rd gear, you guys talked about it. I mean, that 100 from 200 charge was straight up. There was no laying over. There was no, missing. There was no, it was on a pass. I mean,
I got goosebumps. I mean, it was like, because one of my buddies were talking about the movement from 100 to 200, and it's like, this thing is trucking.
It was still charging, So it was first time we went out with new props. They were a little bit smaller. I think we like I said, we just got data off this thing. I mean, we literally just pulled back in the shop with this thing an hour ago. We just got back. So, one of the guys sent us over some data, and we saw 10% slippage on the props, which is a lot. Way too much. But we've learned through that pass right there, even though it was short, it blew over. It was windy that day, They had an hour wind delay, and we sat there on the starting lone because we towed this thing out just like a Pro Mod. We don't drive it around. So we towed out, we're hanging out, just waiting, and pretty much everyone had decided that, we're making a pass. So it was real windy that morning. We talked about it, and everyone was kind of, wishy-washy, but right before we started running, the wind did die down a little bit. So we felt a lot more comfortable that, we got an opportunity to make a hit. Let's do it. We can always come back and try to make another one, but there was a possibility of wind gusts. And at the end of this track, there's kind of a cove that opens up. And that was the only thing we really didn't like about this place is, there's a possibility of some real wind gusts right when you're going, top speed, right when you're going through the traps. And it's just a combination of things. We learned a lot. I can tell you that the boat worked. It's, everyone survived and everyone walked away with minimal injuries, but we got a lot left.
I saw your run from last year where it was stuck in second, and that was impressive as well. Like, for it to not shift and still run as fast.
What's the powertrain in the American ethanol boat? Forgive my ignorance.
I think they got 4 Pro Charger deals, and I think last year they had 2 that were standard rotation and the 2 that were reverse rotation, and they had to build reversers for their Pro Chargers. Like, there was a lot going on in that boat, a lot, and it's a big boat.
It's interesting to hear all the comparisons to like what we do in drag racing and Pro Mod, towing it out there, and this track's known for this or this wind and some of the conditions. But like, you've mentioned Mark Mickey and Shane Tecklenburg and some of these drag racing minds that are involved in this. What are the similarities or differences, I guess, more so in the stuff that's in that boat compared to what they've got in their drag cars and in that Noonan engine versus the ones we have in drag racing?
You mentioned the dry block.
Yeah.
I mean, I just had somebody in the comments asking whether or not it's got a lockup torque converter.
Well, just
how that works.
And getting it to live, I guess, over a longer period of time, because you're running 3/4 of a mile. We're running an 1/8 mile usually with this stuff. So like, just from the drag racing minds that we know, what do they do differently? Or I mean, like, what's the crossover between those two worlds?
There is no torque converter.
There's not much difference, to be honest. I mean, we said, hey, this is what we want to do, and it's basically a Pro Mod Noonan. I mean, there's no difference in the engine setup. There's no difference in the blower setup. I mean, it's got mechanical running through the hat to keep the blower wet, and then we've got Motec to compensate, data log, and run some other things on the boat to help keep it alive. But there's really not a whole lot of differences. No torque converter is probably the biggest one. It's direct drive, so you get your slip. Your torque converter is the prop.
That's what I was going to say. The prop.
So it's the same exact thing, to be honest. I mean, it's the same tuning, other than keep it a little more rich. Obviously, you don't want these things to lean out at 3/4 of a mile and hurt one and really have a catastrophic failure. If one goes away, that's been our biggest concern the whole time is, you've got 2 going at the same time and you're running, 200 plus mile an hour and you lose one engine, one prop. You guys can imagine that's probably going to get pretty hairy pretty quick.
That's kind of what also people saw in our very first test pass when it first got put on the water, was that very hard left that it took. That was all in first gear. It actually lost one of the transmissions, and that's why it took such a hard turn like that. So you can imagine that was only at 140 miles an hour. Imagine when it's doing 210 like it was, and something like that.
Or 240.
Yeah.
What is the propeller RPM? Like, it's got to be like, do you guys have a sense around that?
We're just learning all this day. Like I said, this is the fifth pass on this boat. So,
well, you guys pulled in and you thought, let's jump on the Wes Buck Show and do a quick interview. I don't blame you.
I mean, as you see, it's still cobbled together. We barely got it here, but no, you guys gave us the opportunity, and we wanted to talk about our story. The whole deal behind this is charity, so we wanted to be able to plug our charity. So you guys have a huge following. I've heard of Wes Buck and Drag Illustrated and this podcast for a long time. I did Hot Rod Drag Week in 2012. I hung out with Todd Mashmeyer and Larry Larson and all those guys, and I've known those guys for a long time. And this is a passion of mine. So, having this opportunity, we weren't going to miss it no matter what. We hauled to get back here. We stuffed her, back in the shop and set this up just so we could do this and talk about it. But, we still have a lot to learn. I mean, we got a lot of testing to do. Obviously, we got a boat to put back together. The cool part is everyone walked away. No one is discouraged at all. I mean,
they're very happy, actually.
Yeah, they're happy.
That's
we
great.
won the race. We really did what we set out to do. I know we tore a bunch of stuff up, but everyone knows that's part of racing. I mean, It's not if, it's when. If you're pushing,
there's no doubt, man. I mean, what does the rebuild process look like? Because I mean, we in the drag racing world, like, we can look at a crash and be like, oh, that thing's going to need a quarter panel, or they're going to have to front half it, or all the different things. Like, you can watch a wreck happen and kind of know, like, that thing's probably junk. or, you know, hey, that thing's going to be able to be repaired. What's that process look like on a big ass boat like that?
Well, so when the crash happened, there was a couple guys from Skater down there that of course help us. When it happened, they said that tow it back up here, we'll put it in the mold and see how bad it really is. So until we get the motors pulled out and towed back up to Michigan,
it's a question mark.
Yeah, they said that it's not that bad compared to some of the, which is
to us, we're like, I mean,
it looks bad.
This thing is wadded up. The front corner's ripped off. The back corner's ripped off. There was an engine literally broke out of the rails. I mean, in our opinion, we're like, holy cow, guys, we're starting over. But those guys have been doing powerboats forever. I mean, this is their 50th year, so they're through and through professionals, and they're very good at what they do. So, like Noah said, it's you know, pull all the rigging out, send it back to Skater. They're going to go through it with fine-tooth comb, and they're going to let us know if, hey, you know, we're going to fix this thing, or no, you guys need to build a new boat. So either way, everyone's on board. No one's discouraged. You know,
That's
we
awesome.
talked to drivers probably an hour and a half, 2 hours after the crash. Hey, we're getting the boat back on the trailer. Don't worry about it. We got it. And the first thing out of both their mouth on speakerphone was, well, did we win? Seriously. And then I supposedly, from what I understand, there was a race out of the hospital to the first one that could be at the Uber. Typical drag race fashion. I mean, it did not slow these guys down one bit. All they keep talking about is we're ready to get this thing back together so we can get back out on the water and do what we want to do.
And I love that. Like, I watched that that JT, maybe you should throw that video in the comments so people can watch it, the movie or the documentary type deal.
Oh yeah.
Just hearing the opening segment there, where the gentleman's talking about how the Spirit of Qatar set the record at the Ozarks, and like that just seems weird seeing that on the wall. Like it should be the Spirit of America that's winning that's setting the record at the shootout in the Lake of the Ozarks. And I think that those are like, that's at the core of what we do in drag racing, is you want to be the guy. Right? Like that's what drives so much of this, is that's why we get so excited and spend all this money chasing trophies, right? And chasing records. It's because you want to be that guy. You want your name on the wall there. And I just thought that was like an exciting and interesting motivation for this whole project. And I'm glad to hear that you guys aren't giving up, because I hear that the Spirit of Qatar boat has been sold. It's going to make its way back to the Lake of the Ozarks potentially. I don't know like how serious any of those rumblings are, but it does feel like the door's open. I'm curious, like what is the overall like state of powerboat racing? I feel like I see a lot of it. I mean, what kind of, like, what was in the category you guys were racing in this past weekend? Like, how many boats are you going up against?
It was kind of surprising in Havasu. There wasn't, it's nothing like Lake of the Ozarks. Havasu is a party lake. So tons of, cruising boats and tons of power boats that are out there to have fun. There was only like 30 boats that even signed up for the whole race. So we were really the only ones going out to do what we want to do. X Insurance has been amazing for racing, all across the industry, and they've been really good in the powerboat stuff. So they had their newly rigged turbine boat out there, and that was pretty cool. But I think they ran like 136 or 138, so nowhere really in the ballpark. But Lake of the Ozarks is our true passion. That's our local lake, and we really just went to Havasu to get some testing time in. We wanted to test at Lake Havasu. They have a race in Texas called the Texas Outlaw Challenge, so another 3/4 mile shootout that we were going to go test there, and we really wanted to be, dialed in. That way we could go take that trophy at Lake of the Ozarks and have our name on the wall. Mm-hmm. And it's just one of those things that, we might have just been delayed a little bit. There is no quit in this team at all. There is no, hey, let's wait a while, or no. I mean, as soon as we pull back in the shop, we are already talking about, hey, this is what we need to do. Let's get these things yanked apart. Let's send this stuff, out to Noonan. Let's send the transmissions here. Let's figure out props again. It's get the boat back to Skater as soon as possible. I mean, there was literally no hesitation whatsoever.
Is Ozarks the main event then for you guys?
That's the biggest one.
That's
in the
together. And then how many others? I mean, like, I guess how many were you kind of planning on hitting this year? I'm just not sure. I didn't know.
Those are the only
three big ones.
Those are the only 3 in the country.
Wow, really?
There's a lot of success that could be had with 3 big events. that
Yeah, I've heard about that. I don't know.
We do three.
That's what we do.
Events.
That's
Yeah,
what we
that's
do.
what
We
do.
try to put on 3 big events in the off season for pro mods. But I mean, it's crazy to hear the similarities to the deal. And like you said, maybe having to scrap this boat. Like what goes into that? Like what kind of time, costs, investment, and everything are you looking at if you do have to just start over with this thing?
So this was a 2-year build. We kept it quiet for 2 years because we didn't want anybody to know what we were doing. We didn't want anybody to try to do the same thing. We wanted to come out, and just be a total game changer. And I think we hit the nail on the head. We did a really good job. But we don't really know. So we've learned a lot. Everyone involved knows that we want to get back out of the water as soon as possible. So I don't really know. I mean, it could be 6 months. It could be 12 months. I think this build process will go a lot quicker just because we know exactly what we're doing now. So I think that helps the situation. We've got 2 spare engines. We've got spare transmissions. We've got spare everything but a boat. So,
well, yeah, we're just waiting on a good report from the boys up at Skater, and we'll be in Tall Cotton, man. What do you make of looking at, like, whenever you go to the Lake of the Ozarks? You talked about 30 boats total at Desert Storm. What kind of participation will we see in the unlimited class at the Lake of the Ozarks shootout? I mean, I'm sure the American Ethanol boat will be there. A bunch of other boats. There's some other local hitters. I mean, what do you expect at that event? Do you think that we'll see the record fall?
Man, that's a tough question. I know they got a lot of boats and a lot of different classes there. I think the Top Gun deal is typically been American Ethanol. I mean, they've had the Top Gun for 10 years.
That's the thing too, is with the shootout. That one of our big points too was wanting to bring the shootout style back. It was kind of
bring the excitement.
It was kind of going down and now that we hear that all these boats are coming back. It makes us feel good because there's a lot more excitement and more people getting back into the shootout style.
Yeah, we want competition. We don't want to go out and just race ourselves. I mean, we don't want to go out and race American Ethanol. We've heard, last year we heard Spirit of Qatar got rebought and is coming back out. And,
good.
They were running 80% on the turbines, and they're going to turn them up to 110%. And, we've heard of another boat fairly similar to this one, a little bit bigger, but some big twin turbo power. We welcome everyone to come out. We want everyone to bring out as much power and as much excitement as we possibly can. I mean, this is kind of our deal now. We got away from, cars and quarter-mile drag boats. So, we want to keep running the shootout stuff for a long time. So we really hope a lot of people get involved. And I hope this doesn't discourage people, what they saw here. But everyone should know when you start pushing boats over 180, this is a possibility. And you see a lot of blowovers in the sport. I mean, it just happens. There's no.
I think that you make a great point, and sometimes I hate that you guys had to tear anything up, but I do think that a couple of things. First and foremost, the fact that you're doing it with like tried and true parts and pieces. I mean, there's a lot of comments about like how exotic of the build was and how nice the boat is. But when I think about the hard parts, things like engines and transmissions and whatnot, hearing you mention the names that you did, Noonan, M&M, these are guys that have parts and inventory and stuff readily available. So I think like it's the fact that it's not turbine driven, that it's a couple of blown alcohol Hemis, maybe will, excite some people or go, you know what, if you can do it with that, like that's not, a completely impossible to have. That's not an in-house engine shop. That's some stuff that you can buy and put together yourself. And then the other part of it, I mean, obviously the downside, you hate to see you guys tear the boat up, but all the buzz, I mean, that video is on every news channel in America right now. And it's kind of this double-edged sword of, you hate to have that happen, but at the same time, if you want to talk about, bringing some excitement back to powerboat racing, mission accomplished, brothers.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and you learn something. I mean, every time that there's a bad accident in drag racing, we always come out of it on the other side learning something from it.
Exactly.
And,
And
it
transcends the sport too. I mean, none of this, our audience, ourselves, we wouldn't have seen this had it not gone viral and kind of crossed over to our industry as well. So there's always a silver lining that's coming out of stuff.
That's what we talked about is, so the whole point, if you watch the short documentary, you'll see that the whole point of this deal was to go out, set records, and raise money for charity. So we're never going to have a sponsor. We're never going to plug, big names. It's not about one person on the team or drivers or, any one thing. It's about, a big team of people come together. We all do this because we want to. Nobody gets paid in this deal. It's all voluntary. And it takes a group of guys to do it. I mean, it's not something that's easy to do. You got 2 of everything. Yeah. So it's a lot of work. But we talked, even if we went out there and went 300 miles an hour and 3/4 mile, we would have never seen the buzz that we're seeing now from this. So we think it's a blessing in disguise. Obviously, someone had their hands on our drivers in the situation. It was extremely hard to watch. You know, we're family. You know, this whole group is family. We've known each other for a long time. And to be on that towboat, going behind America One and seeing that rooster tail just fly up and, you know, we heard it shift into 3rd gear and that thing just started to eat. And we could tell that was the first pass that thing was just moving. And then all of a sudden you see this thing take flight and just blow up higher than any blowover I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of blowover videos, but this thing literally just flew. I mean, it went from the highest high to the lowest low within 2 seconds. So it was extremely difficult, but
we're going to get some Stroud shoots on that thing.
They've got
to shoot on it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Shoots on them. But you got to understand that stuff happens so fast.
So fast. Yep.
Mile an hour. It doesn't even have time for those shoots to come out and deploy. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff. So, like I said, we've learned a lot. We're going to use these things have called what's an INS on them. So it has pitch, yaw, roll. We're going to give that a lot more authority in the future. I mean, there's a lot of things that we're going to do different, but we did what we wanted to do. I mean, we started doing, you know, interviews for national TV and plugging our charity the whole entire time. So we would have never seen that notoriety and never got that buzz if it wasn't for something this spectacular.
And sometimes there's moments like this that are like a jumping off point where, like you said, it's like I remember growing up and everybody talking about, you know, JT and I are both Missouri boys. And it's like you hear every summer, you know, the shootout. And it did in recent years. It seems to have kind of maybe not lost its luster. It's still a big deal to the hardcores, but it isn't this like pop culture phenomenon that it was when we were younger. And it takes things like this to kind of rejuvenate that or relight that fire. And like I said, I hate to see anybody tear up hot rod stuff, but maybe that is the silver lining, Ryan. I think you might be right.
And what's cool about it is, you know, when we mentioned that we were going to Lake Havasu, so I think they're going to start a circuit, like a series. So Lake of the Ozarks is the top tier. They have their stuff together. They know how to run the show. They have all the safety there. They have the divers. They have all the equipment. And they put on an amazing 2-day show. So this is the first year that they went to Lake Havasu and basically showed them how to run the operation. So it was real cool to have the low tow guys there running it with them. And, you know, they basically told us, hey, you know, if you guys come out here, you guys are really going to grow this Lake Havasu deal. And boy, I think we did.
I think so.
I think we did, Ryan. Yeah.
I think we did put it on the map. So what's crazy is, you know, not many people knew about us or our mission or, you know, raising money for charities or anything like that. But I think now once we get the boat back together and we tell, hey, we're going to go to this race, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a huge deal everywhere we go from now on. So
yeah, I think you're exactly right, man. I think you're going to be beating people off with a stick because there's nobody that's going to want to miss an opportunity to see America One out on the water. Ryan, Noah, we appreciate you guys. Thanks for spending a little bit of time with us. I hope we didn't push you too hard to get back in the shop, but I'm glad you're home safe, and I look forward to checking in with you guys soon.
Yes, please do. Anytime you want. We love talking. Thank you for the opportunity. Hey, can I plug one thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, man, sure.
Just go to our website, freedomoneracing.com, and donate, buy merch, whatever. It just goes straight to charity. None of the donations go to put this boat back together. It's all privately funded. And then obviously check out that short documentary on YouTube.
It's badass.
We'll do. We'll link it here.
Plug in the web story this week.
Thank you, guys. Good seeing you.
Hey, appreciate you guys. Let us know if you need anything. Be safe. Yep. All right, guys, let me take a quick second here before we bring on our final guest of the day. We got a big name in the green room for you guys, but I do want to remind you real quick that each and every episode of the Wes Buck Show is made possible by ART, Applied Race Technology, based in Clearwater, Florida, has spent more than 2 decades earning a reputation as one of drag racing's top names for quality parts and award-winning service. These guys eat, sleep, and breathe the sport of drag racing, whether it's Pro Mod, Pro Stock, or the all-important Sportsman Grassroots classes, and plus ART's committed to giving back. They sponsor some of the biggest races in the country, have worked with a multitude of world champion drivers and record setters. So if you're on the hunt for top tier components and expert guidance for your race program, you've got to check out Applied Racing Technology. Show them some love for supporting the sport of drag racing, and of course supporting us here on the Wes Buck Show. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for one of the greatest of all time when it comes to NHRA Pro Stock Motorcycle, the legend himself, Matt Smith. What's going on, Matt?
What's up, Matt?
Hey, how y'all doing?
We're doing good, man. Congratulations on a hell of a weekend, brother. That was one insane final round. I'd love to just kind of hear your recounting of the weekend, because we need this, right? We've seen Gage Herrera go on this historic run, but you proved this weekend that you ain't going to go away easily.
Yeah, I mean, we tried at Gainesville. We were running right there with them and outran them on Sunday there, but I just couldn't cut a light down there for some reason. The way we were running our clutch program down there, it just was slipping the clutch too much to have a good reaction time. So we come back, we did some testing, got that all fixed up, and showed that we got the bike back pretty close to where we need to be, and we were fast, and it could cut a light now.
It can definitely cut a light. 0-14 there in the final. But right now, it seems like we talk about this sometimes when we talk about Top Fuel. I mean, Pro Stock's got a slew of world-class competitors right now, but Top Fuel and Funny Car, like, at times what they lack in quantity, they sure as hell make up for in quality. Do you feel that's something similar that's happening in Pro Stock Motorcycle right now? Because it seems like there's a lot of really good bikes.
Yeah, I mean, you look at our quad in the final, I mean, those 4 bikes, they were all pretty equally matched. At least 3 of them were really close together, within 100th of each other. We all left within 100th, I think, on the start line.
Yeah.
So it was a tight race all the way down the track. And from the 60-foot standpoint, I was behind probably at 100, 150 feet. And we had this V-twin power. It just powered right on by them. But all in all, just a great weekend for our team. I know Angie and John, they had good bikes. They lost first round, but they were 4th and 5th of the round. We found out what was wrong with Gianna's bike, why it didn't start up. It was a pinched wire. We did a motor swap on hers. And we went and tested with her yesterday, and her bike is back within 100th of mine. So look out for her at Chicago.
How much momentum does this give you headed into Chicago? I mean, we're kind of going to get into the dog days of summer here soon, when the men are often separated from the boys. I know you're one of these wiry veterans that have been around this for a long time. Do you kind of look forward to when the conditions start to become more of a challenge and the track becomes a little more difficult to manage? Mike and I talk about this all the time, that there's a whole crop of drag racers that look forward to that they, of course, we all want the track to be perfect and the air to be perfect, but we know there's a few of you guys that know that that's kind of playing into your hand in terms of experience.
Yeah, I mean, you look at where Gage has beat us this year so far is the nighttime passes. On Friday night, he comes out swinging. They go 102, 103, 60 foot, and he gets the number 1 qualifier. We don't run that on Sunday, So typically we've been pretty close to him on Sunday, and we had the best bike on Sunday there. So all in all, I'm looking forward to the summertime. I think the track will get a little bit hotter. I don't think you'll see the 102, 103, 60 foots. If they back up to 104s and 105s, and we can go 106s or 107s, I think we'll have good competition all summer long. So really looking forward to this year. We've done a lot of work. We've done a lot of dynoing over the winter to get this VP fuel, ready, that NHRA put on us to run this year. And like I said, I'm looking forward to it, up for the challenge.
I'm looking forward to it as well. Can you tell us a little bit about these 60-foot times? Because last year we were hearing a lot of stuff about riding style and the way guys, and gals move their body. I mean, is there some English to this whenever it comes to these killer 60-foot times? Like, we've heard some things about the way Gage Herrera moved his body and the way that he took off on the starting line. Like, how much, I think our viewers would love to hear, like, the nuances of how you actually ride the bike. I mean, it seems like the conversation always goes to clutch setup, horsepower. We've been on the dyno, but it seems like there's a little bit of black magic to making these Pro Stock bikes fast.
Well, I don't think it's so much riding style as Gage is a great rider, but he's not the reason that bike goes to 60 foot. It goes. Richard's bike is now going 60 foot like that. They have a team bike, that Kelly Clontz rides. So Richard, Gage, me, other people in our class, we sit more up on the bike, and when we throw the clutch, we throw our body forward. That's called a surge. Typically, that's good for about 160 foot. Other people just leave low on the bike, or they just be still on the bike. Kelly Clontz is, I'll mention her because that's the Vance Nine's bike. She doesn't surge. So she was going 105s and 106s. and that surge gives you about 100th. But the problem is the Suzuki's, they have 80 to 90 foot-pounds less torque than the V-twin has. So they don't have to worry about really spinning the tire as hard as we do as far as torque. And that's where we're having the problem, the V-twins. The V-twins just don't want a 60 foot in that 102, 103 range. Can we go 105s? Yes. Can we go 106 and 107s more consistently? Yes. And that's kind of where we're at. We're at the 107s here at Charlotte. I didn't want to get after it too much. I didn't want to spin the tire, because once you spin the tire, you lose more ET by spinning the tire than just being conservative and going 107, 60 foot. I think Gage is a prime example of that. He spun the tire too much round 2. He lost lane choice to me and Richard. So he had third choice, of the quad and going into finals. So all in all, I think that's what you want to do. You want to be more conservative on Sunday, and that's where I was at this week.
Tell me about this surge. I've never heard that before. I mean, that's so. Are there other terminology for riding style, or is there other things that? I mean, were you practicing that motion or that movement when you're going 107 there in the final, 107.6?
Yeah, I've done this my whole life.
Okay.
Since I started, I've always surged on the bike. It's kind of you got to be coordinated when you floor it, you throw the clutch. You just kind of go with the bike. You'll see people just get tucked. As we're staging, you'll see the people sit more straight up. There's more than just me that does it in the V-twins. Hector Rana does it. There's a lot of people that Chase Van Sant does it on his Suzuki. So there's plenty of people that do it, but a lot of times the females, they won't do it because they're already light, so they don't really have to do it. Us guys do it because we're heavier. We don't have the weight on the bike like we can with the girls. So we have to throw our body weight forward to try to make that weight, go with the bike.
Wow. It's very interesting to hear you talk about it. I mean, and is that enough of a difference? So that, like you said, to your point earlier about Gage, it's clearly not his riding style. If it's worth one number, that it's not just that.
Yeah, it's only worth about 100th. I mean, don't get me wrong. Gage is a great rider. He's phenomenal at making that bike consistent. He's phenomenal at doing, the tree. He's just a good all-around rider. But he's not the reason that bike is so fast. That bike is fast because they got plenty of power. They got Vance and Hines behind them. They got bukus of money behind them. They got Andrew Tunin. And now they got Richard Gasson on the same bike as what Gage's has. And you can see those bikes are fast. They're finally getting Richard's bike to like Gage's bike. So all in all, they've got 2 really good bikes. And it's going to be a dogfight this year. I've got 4 bikes. And I know that my 4 bikes can do just what I can do. So once we get my 4 bikes competitive like mine and they get there too, that's 6 spots gone. And it's going to be really hard for other people to get semifinals, I think, this year out of it if we get all of our bikes right.
What does that process look like? I mean, now you kind of start to, because I mean, I can feel like it can be argued either way, right? Like we've seen teams in the past that really flourished in the multi-car setup, right? Or multi-bike setup. They're learning a lot more. They got more hands on deck, et cetera. But it often, there are other instances where it spreads you too thin. How much of a challenge and how much of a balancing act do you have to do to focus on winning and representing all the brands that support you and all the people that support you and your own personal goals? Like, it's no secret you won another championship. But how do you balance that with also preparing this host of other hot rods for these other riders?
It's a challenge. Right now we're down a man on our team. We typically have a crew guy on every bike. So we have 4 bikes. We typically have 4 crew guys. The guy that's helped us for the last 5-6 years, his name's Cookie Man. He had a little surgery over the winter done, and he hasn't been able to come back yet. He's healing up, getting ready, but as soon as the doctors release him to get back, he'll be right back to our team. So as I said, right now we've got some people filling in. We didn't have nobody this weekend to really fill in, so we were down a man. So when Saturday came and all 4 of our bikes had to run in the first quad of the Mission Too Fast, Too Tasty, that was a challenge. That was a big challenge, So we won't have those challenges bad the rest of the year with this 2 wide until we get back to Charlotte. But I'm pretty sure by then we'll have Cookie Man back and, we'll be good. Like I said, I love tuning 4 motorcycles. It makes me not focus and not think so much on my own personal bike. So I feel like it makes me better. And I'm learning a lot by trying to help other people. I try to make them a better rider, and we definitely are trying to give them the same power that I have.
I expect to see oh gosh dang it, Gianna Evaristo. I was going to butcher her last name, call her Salinas, but it's to see her kind of coming out of her shell, the support that she's gotten from the Scrappers racing team and everybody to stay out here contending for a championship and, you know, contending for race wins. What's it been like working with her? Because it does seem like she has rapidly developed as, you know, with you as a mentor.
Yeah, I mean, that's been our focus for the last 2 years. You know, I took 2 years ago, I got off the V-Twin to help her with her Suzuki program. We were doing all that stuff in-house. And so I just said the biggest learning curve that I could do and to help her was actually build a Suzuki myself and ride, just like what she's doing. And we did that together. And, you know, I finished 4th in the world. She finished 5th in the world on that. And I told her at that point, I said, look, I told her and her dad, I sat them down, I said, look, I don't think we can go no farther with this program. We have to go back to the V-Twins if you want to get better. And full commitment, they wanted to do it. We built 4 motors. We got 2 or 3 motorcycles for them built, and they're all in with the V-Twin. And last year was her first year on a V-Twin, and everybody in the world said she couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. Well, I think she proved everybody wrong, because it only took her about 3 or 4 races to get used to that bike. And she is, you know, she holds the speed record basically for females. She got the speed record away from my wife, you know, at 204 mile an hour last year. So this girl's done an amazingly good job in a short period of time. And I'm going to be really disappointed this year if we cannot get her a win, you know, this year. It's like I try to explain to people. There's only one winner every weekend. But this Gage Herrera dude, he's stuck the show up for the last 2 years, and he's got 20-some wins in 2 years. And we only run 15 races a year. So, you know, there's not a lot of other people that's able to win. So we're going to try to get her a win this year. She's got a brand new sponsor with JHG, and I hope we can get this done.
What do you make of, like, explain to us the differences of riding since you've ridden every motorcycle under the sun? How different? I mean, the people that were saying that Gianna wouldn't be able to do this, like, what does your seat of the pants feel in differences between the two bikes?
I mean, the biggest difference in the Suzuki to the V-Twin is just the Suzuki revs higher, and the V-Twin vibrates a lot. So the Suzuki's a nice, smooth machine, accelerates really fast, you know, high revving, 14,000 RPMs. The V-Twin is very torquey, a lot of vibration, and revs to 10,000 RPMs. But besides that, that's about the only difference. I mean, they both can go, you know, 60 foots, you know, they both go to over 200 mile an hour. So there's just those differences.
So it's kind of like comparing riding a Sportster and a Hayabusa.
Yeah,
you know, I mean,
exactly.
One's vibrating and loud, and yeah,
that's it. You know, and honestly, they both make about the same power. I mean, I think the Suzuki makes a little bit more power, you know, than the V-Twin, because of the RPMs it runs, and that's probably why they weigh 20 more pounds than we do right now. But right now, it looks like the class is pretty competitive at where it's at, and I'm pretty happy with it. You know, we think we have a good shot at trying to get 7, or we get Angie number 1, or John number 1, or Gianna number 1. So that's our goal this year. We're here to try to knock Gage off that championship and get a championship for ourselves.
Is it as intense between your two camps as it would appear from the outside looking in? Like, it would appear, I know you're all respectful guys and you spend a lot of time around one another, but I mean, I think that the fans want to know, like, this is a pretty serious rivalry. Like, this is not a we're going to dinner afterwards type of situation. Am I right?
Yeah, I didn't get a Christmas card from Vince and I last year, and they didn't get one from me. But no, I mean, we try to keep it peaceful. We try to talk a little bit. You know, there'll be some, you know, running off the mouth sometimes. You know, you saw Andrew, he ran off of the mouth at Gainesville, and you know, after the race, after they waited for us, we had a little problem, and that was kind of uncalled for. If the same situation happened, I'd wait on them. I want to beat them heads up. I want to beat them fair and square. At that point, you know, things happen. Things get tense, and I called him out on the internet and challenged him to a race. You know, but I don't think he wants to race me. He's too big. He's lost the touch, and I don't think he wants to do it. So he still wants to do it. I'm up for the challenge anytime. I'm 52 years old, and I can still go at it.
I love it, man. I mean, and I got to be honest, like, I think that there's a whole world of us that like feel like we need to tell guys like Matt Smith, thank you, because that's some of that edges. And we were talking about that with JR Gray at the beginning of the show, because what happens inevitably, and we've seen it in so many other sports, but it's like, as the stakes get higher, the intensity is no less, but people are less willing to show it. Right? Because there's all these eyes on us and we're on TV and we've got all these sponsors and whatnot. But we can't forget the fact that we're all a bunch of hillbilly, outlaw, badass drag racers. And what brought all these people to the party and what got us all involved in this was the nitty gritty nature of it, that we want to win and we're not bashful about it. So I got to tell you that, I mean, speaking on behalf of all of us at Drag Illustrated, we absolutely love it. We want to see more of it. Like, and again, it can be professional and it can be peaceful. Nobody needs to be fist fighting in the parking lot, but there needs to be no bones made about it that, hey, we're here to win. And when we don't, we're going to be frustrated. You know what I mean? We're not walking into traffic, but we're not going to take it well. And we're certainly not going to take it lying down. And so we appreciate it, Matt. I love seeing that side of you.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I just want to win. It doesn't matter. If it can't be me, I want it to be Angie. I want it to be Gianna. I want it to be John Hall. You know, I want it to be somebody on our team or one of our customers. And that's what it's all about. We push our stuff every day as hard as we can. And like I said, we left Charlotte, came home, fixed Gianna's bike, checked a couple things, went straight to Rockingham, tested on Tuesday. We're back here at the shop, tearing motors apart, getting ready, and just trying to get everything ready, you know. So, and we're just, it's just me, Angie, and Michael Ray in the shop. You know, our competitor up there, they have 22, 25 employees up there. So they can do a lot more stuff than we can. And, but I think we do pretty good with our 3-man crew.
I think you certainly do. I'm curious. We got a comment in the chat here, and if anybody else has questions, remember we'll do some Q&A at the end of the show. But there's a comment here, like, is it bad for the class to have a team have as many entries as MSR does? Like, if one of those teams were to go away, or if you were to go away, would that be bad? And I'm not asking you that, because I think there's a built-in argument that we've seen big multi-car teams like Elite Motorsports and KB Titan all but save pro stock. Yep. I mean, there's certainly two sides to the coin, but I mean, it's undeniable that kind of a clear pathway to success has reinvigorated pro stock. I mean, we haven't seen the class this healthy in a long time, and it's because there's a lot of different ways to be successful. I'll take his question and kind of piggyback on it, Matt. Like, now with 4 bikes, like, do you see like a continued evolution of this where you could hire more guys? And, you know, I mean, what's your long-term vision? You mentioned 52 years old. I don't know how long you want to ride the bike. I mean, Angie's obviously spry and not giving it up anytime soon, but I mean, what do you make of the future? I mean, do you see an opportunity to put together a Don Schumacher racing level deal where you've got a giant building with 6 or 8 rigs in it running all these bikes? I mean, is that something that is exciting to you or that you're interested in pursuing?
I mean, yeah. I mean, anytime I can help our sport, I mean, I am 150% for motorcycles. Y'all know I've raced a Pro Mod car. I've won in a Pro Mod car. I love doing that. But my heart is Pro Stock motorcycle. And I really like doing it. I really like helping people. And I want our class to grow, just like you said about Pro Stock car. Right now, our class needs help. It takes a lot of money out here to travel a circuit, to run, to get your performance to where you're at. And a lot of people can't do that. We are more, I'm not saying that I'm a hobby racer, but our class is more toward the hobby racer style. We don't have people that come and do this for a living full time. A lot of them have normal jobs, and then they want to come race on the weekends or like, you know, like that. And that's where we have to have big teams like me, Vance and Hines. No different Elite. Elite has that. There's so many of their customers that they have their own business, they have their own job, but they fly in and they Elite sets those cars up and runs them. And KB's the same way. So ultimately, I think that it's good for our class. I mean, if I could have 6, 7, 8 bikes out there, if I had the manpower here in the shop to do it and all that, if they would bring sponsors in and get that stuff, then I could do that. I 100%. I know Vance and Hines could do that, you know, and really help our class, you know, strive to be better. But right now we're.
What do you think the class needs to grow, Matt? What do you think? I mean, we just talked to Ryan and Noah from Freedom One Racing, who were talking about kind of a renewed energy around powerboat racing. And unfortunately, it would appear that it's on the heels of this crazy ass crash that happened on Lake Havasu. But I mean, we obviously don't want to see that happen in pro stock motorcycle. But I mean, we saw a young, fresh face come out and kick ass and take names. Gage Herrera. We've got girls on bikes. Angie, Kelly, Gianna. Like we've got. There's a lot of diversity. Different races and creeds represented. We got young guys like Chase Van Zandt, who look like he should be on the cover of GQ magazine or something. What do you think it's going to take? You know, what does the class need to get to that next level? Is it bigger payouts? Is it, different? What do you think it is?
I think that's the biggest thing right there. You hit on nail on the head. It's payout. We need a bigger payout. We try to explain to NHRA that our rig costs just as much as the KB Titan rig to go up and down the road. No different a top fuel rig going up and down the road. The fuel costs the same in our stuff that does theirs, but they get so much more money than what we get. And we're not asking to get top fuel funny car money. We're not even asking pro stock car money, but at least get us closer to pro stock car. We're so far behind in winnings and prize money that's not even funny. You can't even, if you lose first round in an NHRA race, you can't even, it doesn't even pay for your fuel, your crew guy to fly in, and you to even get any kind of paycheck. And I'll be frank with you. It's like $1,300 to lose first round, to qualify and lose first round. And that's really nothing. We want to get that money up. And that's where we have to have sponsors come in that want to help our class. And that's just where we're at right now. We've got to get the money up to get more bikes out there.
Did the pay change dramatically when Harley Davidson was involved?
No, our class has always been where we're at. Our pay got cut, COVID, which everybody did. And we're just now, last year, we just now got back up to where we were before COVID. I mean, we should be 5-6 years ahead of where we were before COVID. And we're not. And, not blaming anybody, but our sanctioning body, they need to be out there hunting sponsors to help promote more class, especially the 4 pro classes. I mean, in my opinion, top fuel funny car, they don't even get paid nearly enough to what they do. The amount of stuff that those guys blow up and tear up, and they got 5, 6, 7 guys, tearing a car down. So employee salary costs a lot, period, for a whole year, much less all the stuff they tear up. So them guys, they ain't making no money. If they ain't got no sponsors, just some rich guys just out there playing. And we need to get to the point to where we have some NASCAR kind of money in here. I think that's why Tony Stewart come over. He saw that he could get big money from the NASCAR side. He brought that over here, and he's like, man, I can actually make money doing this because he's got the funding to do it. And that's where we need to have some NASCAR money come over here and help our sport.
I couldn't agree more. I've been saying this for the last several years, like in offline and private conversations, but I'll say it to you and to everyone, but the drag racing economy has to change. And I know that's not going to happen overnight, but I think our sport will always be built on the back of the guys that are doing it for fun. That's what makes this sport so special, I think. But it's also held it back in many ways because a guy can't go out and aspire to become a professional drag racer and earn a living doing it. I mean, just a few short weeks ago on this show, we were interviewing Paul Lee, and he told this dramatic story about trying to become a drag racer and trying to go out and build a team and get sponsors and quickly realizing, well, I better go to college or I better go get a good job because I'm never going to be able to, scrounge up enough money to earn a living drag racing. And he had to go out and build a multi-million-dollar business to ultimately afford him the opportunity to drag race. And while that's a awesome thing, in the grand scheme of things, those guys like Paul should be the icing on the cake, right? But the cake should be comprised of guys that are able to go out and turn this into a functional business. Even if you're not able to, maybe strike it rich, if your racing program would at least pay for itself, where then you could go win some races or bring in some sponsorship, etc. I mean, that would change our world overnight. I agree. And I think Tony Stewart did see that. I had that conversation with Antron Brown. I mean, he said that to me about his Pro Mod team. He goes, look, if we can go Pro Mod racing and generate the same level of exposure or even a similar level of exposure, but run a car that takes a fraction of the dollars, and to do it, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, he's a guy that's transitioned from paid driver to a team owner, and he recognizes and has seen firsthand the way these P&Ls look at the end of the year. Pretty brutal for any race team worth their salt. So I think you make a great point, and I hope that we do see more of that. And it may well take just one of those sponsors, like you mentioned, Jason Johnson, the guys at JHG. Mike, there's a whole lot of people that have contributed a big way to the sport of drag racing. But if you could get, you know, somebody that had, you know, the conversation I tend to have a lot is if somebody came in that was a super passionate guy or gal that was really passionate about pro stock motorcycle or pro mod or whatever, pro stock, and would provide some runway, you know, we're like, hey, we're going to do a deal for 3 years to help get you to this point. But by that point, you're going to need to be transitioning to whatever Fortune 500 company or whatever comes next. Who knows what could happen. And I think a lot of times if they would just have those conversations,
yeah,
and talk about trying to improve and talk about trying to grow the purses, you never know, but that excites people. When there's a carrot dangling out there somewhere, you can get some action. But as long as you're just committed to the same thing we've always done, it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, and I've tried to tell, you know, our sanctioning body, maybe cut off some of our races back. We don't need to go to all these races. You're a prime example. You had 3 races. You had a lot of money brought into your 3 races, and you had a great payout for those 3 races to win that deal. And that's where I think we could help ourselves if we didn't go all over the country as much. You know, let's scale some races back, throw some out, you know, maybe hit that avenue next year at one of these places that want to go, you know, mix it up some. But, you know, they just seem to want to do the same thing, and the racers keep continuing to do it. And I think ultimately until the pro organization steps up and says, hey, NHRA, this is what we need. We need to have more money for our 4 professional categories. You know, I just think we're all in the same hole that we're going to be in, you know.
But what challenges do you think exist? Because my experience with that is that, you know, there are segments of the pro group that, you know, it's so laser focused on fuel racing, on nitro racing that, you know, I don't know what the state of affairs is today, to be honest with you, Matt, but, you know, there was not much communication between pro and the pro stock motorcycle contingent. I've been down that road firsthand. And even, you know, to a lesser degree in recent years, the same kind of existed with pro stock until Richard Freeman got involved with pro. So, right. I mean, do you think that, because I think sometimes there's so much infighting and so much kind of island mentality where it's like the Top Fuel Island, the Funny Car Island, the Pro Stock Island, the Pro Stock Bike Island, that it doesn't help matters, Matt, right, if that makes sense, right? Because we can't, you know, work together as a group to put some pressure on them. And I think there's been some pressure put on NHRA over the course of the last few years for sure. But I mean, there's still not anybody that's really came out and rivaled them. But I do think an increase in the purses, because I want guys like you to be doing interviews and bragging about racing for 50 grand or 100 grand. Like that'll get your sponsors excited too. Yeah. I mean, if they know that you're racing for that kind of money, you know, it's going to excite and entice them as well. So it's a really interesting deal, man. It really is.
And I think that's where our sanction body should want to be at. I think they should want to be there saying that these guys are racing for this amount of money. You know, you see sportsmen racing all over the country at these $1 million races or $100,000 to win this weekend, you know, all over the country. And if they can do it, why can't our main sanction body do that? I think they can if they just put the right people in place and go to work.
I couldn't agree more, Matt, man. Seriously. And I think that was really insightful. And it's, you know, it may be, sometimes there is a magic bullet, you know what I mean? One thing. And if you could re-energize and re-excite this group of people that have clearly proven they're dedicated, right? I mean, look at all the crow, you know, not crow. I mean, all the shit you've had to deal with over the course of the last several years, all these different rule changes, sponsor changes, this, that, and the other. I mean, you're still out here fighting the good fight. So they know they've got you. Right. They've got your support. You've demonstrated that you're not going anywhere. And I think that they would be well served to kind of reward that commitment with some movement in the right direction on the purses. You know, it's not all about money, but man, it makes a big difference when it comes to marketing and promoting these events. I can tell you from experience.
Yep. You're right.
Well, hey, Matt, I appreciate it, man. Congratulations. Thanks for spending some time here with us this afternoon. I hope we didn't keep you too long, but it's great to see you back in the winner's circle, and we can't wait to see how you manage these hot summer months, man. Good luck in Chicago.
Hey, thank you. And is Mike still on here, or is he gone already?
Oh, no, he's still on here. He's trying to hide out.
I'm here, big dog.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to do a shout out to you, Mike. thank you for Victory Vinyl for wrapping John Hall's bike. And to bail us out, we had a commercial to do on Thursday at the track with Denzo, and we had some stickers that were messed up, didn't go with Angie's new paint job. And Mike, you really bailed us out. We called him, said, hey, we got to have some stickers done like this. He knocked it out of the park, got him over there within 2 hours, and I can't say enough. Thank you, Mike, for everything you do for us.
Appreciate it, man.
Listen
That's
to that,
what we're here
Mike.
for, dude.
Yeah, man. Listen to that. Look, give it up for my boy Mike Carpenter, man.
It turned out good, man. We're glad to do it. It was cool to see you guys out there winning this weekend and talk to Lisa. I just had a thought while you guys were talking about the sponsors. You know, I think Denzo does a great job activating with you guys, supporting Pro Stock Motorcycle, and kind of filling a lot of those gaps that, you know, we talked about the sponsors leaving. They're one, Lisa's at almost all these events. That's like what you want out of a sponsor. So, you know, really cool to see, and your hometown event to win that once again. So just a cool deal all around.
Yeah. I mean, Lisa is, her and Dan are really big into the NHRA, and, you know, they sponsor a race. They sponsor me and Angie. They sponsor Gianna. I mean, they give John Hall money. They give the KB Titan group money, you know, Clay Milliken. So it's just one of them deals. I mean, they're so passionate about drag racing, and we couldn't ask for a better sponsor. And I really love it that she's hands-on. You know, she is one of the sponsors there. If she's there, she's helping tear the awning down. She's grabbing awning poles, putting them on the back of the trailer door. So you won't see that out of any other sponsor, I can tell you that.
Oh no, it's impressive, man. It is. We love Lisa around here, and it's great to see. She's become such like a part of the community. Yes. It's crazy. Everybody knows her, you know?
Oh yeah.
No, it's amazing, man. Well, Matt, thank you so much, brother. We appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you at the next stop on the NHRA Tour.
All right, thank y'all.
Appreciate it,
See
buddy.
you, man.
Well, hey, man, it was we burned through that bad boy. It was interesting. All of this was good, interesting topics.
Yeah, dude. I was thinking about what Matt was saying about especially like factory support. It kind of feels like you go through the same cycle all the time, where we had Pro Stock really came, I think, from factory support and all the manufacturers going against each other. And then you get Pro Stock Motorcycle, and it's kind of the same thing. Those manufacturers wanted to go against each other. Then you have Pro Stock Truck, same thing. And it's like these classes get built off of that, and then that goes away, and then you're sort of left to fill these holes, you know? And so it's like, I feel like the lack of manufacturer support in drag racing, it just bothers me in a lot of ways. You see,
it does me too. I mean, it makes me want to drive a Tesla.
In NASCAR. They've got it in NASCAR, and I know it's not to the level it used to be, and that's changed over there too.
Well, I don't think there's any meaningful money being spent by the Detroit manufacturers, you know, the big three auto manufacturers in drag racing today.
No,
and
that's what I'm saying.
That's a tragedy, man. It's an absolute tragedy, and it really. And I don't know that it's ever going to come back.
We had Dodge doing a good job, you know, especially in the fuel ranks. Then Toyota has really been like the torchbearer in the fuel ranks for the last few years. And then now they're, you know, leaving or scaling back. And so it just seems like this constant dance with the manufacturer support. And I just think even if you're not a Vance and Hines team or a Dodge direct connection team, you still benefit from that factory support being involved in your class, and the sport as a whole benefits from it. And it seems like when we're talking about sponsorship and payouts, like it's like that's the first hole that I see. Like you gotta kind of fill that hole, and then we can start getting these other companies to increase these payouts.
I mean, I feel like there's proof in the pudding of like all the major auto manufacturers that are involved with Formula One, and I know like the exposure is, you know, significant, right? But it's like you talk to anybody that's involved with those deals, or whenever I go to a SRO, like a GT World Challenge event, like they have a business model like designed for, you know, Porsche focuses on racing because they're going to sell X amount of race cars. There's a business model there. They know they're going to sell this many GT3 RSs or this many GT2s or whatever into these racing organizations, and that helps drive their budget. But it's also like it inspires these guys to drive Porsches, you know, or drive Mercedes or whatever the case may be.
I feel like the drag racing problem, like I'm probably sitting here going through this problem in my head. We've allowed these cars to not be true to the manufacturers.
Yeah.
And you got Fords out there with Chevy engines. You got every funny car's got a
Dodge
Hemi.
engine, a Hemi
and so it's like, you go to a Chevy or a Ford and you're trying to get them involved in some way, and then they start to go, what's on, what how can we relate this to the cars we sell every during the week or whatever, and the more we've allowed the sport to get away from that, like you talk about, everybody's bringing up all these other things in here, and I know like Formula One's got nothing on it that a factory car has, but it just seems to me like that's probably the first thing that we're doing wrong if we want to attract the factory support, is like it's got to actually be true to some of the branding and the factory parts. So I mean
that's definitely the case, like with GT World Challenge and IMSA. Like there's a great comment here from Drag Racing Mayhem. It's like the formula is relatively affordable and easier to be competitive, and has modern technology where it's like, and I know like GT World Challenge or SRR Motorsports has this BOP, they call it balance of power. That's kind of like their patented rule book, if you will. And it's a constantly evolving thing. So they have like a pathway for that. And I don't know what the answer is. Like I've had a handful of like offline conversations with, what's the pathway to get Pro Mod to that point where it's like, modern racing's fielding X amount of cars, KB's fielding X amount of cars, and whatever, and build a team dynamic or a manufacturer dynamic in that route, by going that way. But I do think that's something that's sorely missing, that infusion of revenue or capital from major manufacturers is sorely lacking in the sport of drag racing. And
marketing too.
Yeah.
Like I see that all the Toyota commercials include Antron. For a while there, Mopar had Leah involved. I think they've had, maybe Tony involved in some stuff. But it's just it's a big hole that I think you're kind of, anything you get, you're starting with climbing out of that hole.
Yeah, it's really interesting, man. Okay, closing notes. We're just going to, from what I understand, Alan was head of, there's a question about Alan Reinhart. Apparently he has exited IHRA. It sounds like there's been a massive upheaval there. We've got some of the details, but Bobby Bennett penned an editorial on competitionplus.com that is pretty much lays it out. The departure of Rich Schaefer, the departure of Christian Bird, the departure of Alan Reinhart, and there are a handful of others that were associated and now no longer are. So I actually don't know what the state of affairs is right now. I mean, it's interesting because, just a few short weeks ago, it felt like there was some celebration happening that the IHRA was kind of making these pivotal moves, buying Gallant Motorsports Park, buying National Trail Raceway, and making some serious headway. But there seems to be some sort of executive upheaval that's taken place. I'm anxious to see kind of what the next step is.
Yeah, the concern there, I think, number one is the tracks. We talked about that. Like what happens to those tracks, if something does happen or whatever, and it puts those tracks in a sort of precarious position. And then just the membership, the sanctioning, all things that go along with people that pay for their membership and insurance and all those things. It's kind of a whole system of things there that if one thing crumbles, they all crumble or whatever. So we'll see what happens. I mean, certainly don't want to put a nail in the coffin or anything, but the constant revolving door there certainly is concerning.
And it's tough because the sport of drag racing, I think, needs the IHRA. I think
talked about that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it needs it because I think that drag racing is one of those things that this sport's not going to go away overnight, right? Like there's 400 plus drag strips in North America alone. Like they're not going to bulldoze all these joints at once. But we do, I think the sport would benefit from another major sanctioning body. I mean, for a multitude of reasons, the grassroots racers, the sportsman racers.
I feel like in the wake or in the absence of IHRA, though, over the last, decade or plus.
That's fair.
I mean, I wouldn't even call the latest iterations of IHRA.
Agreed.
To me, it ended somewhere in the mid 2000s when they pivoted away and said, we're not doing any pro classes and doing that sportsman only deal, whatever that timeline was. But I feel like the void has been filled by, events like ours, events, all the other independent, radio events, Donna Long's events, all the big, what am I looking for? Not exhibition events, but big independent
events
that it's either NHRA and you're touring that series, and then you have PDRA that's also filled that void in a lot of ways. Midwest, you had NMCA and NMRA for a while there. But in the void of some of those going away as well, I just feel like independent events are thriving. Big independent. You either have people that chase the NHRA tour dedicated to that style of racing and championships and that kind of deal. And then you have people that are gearing toward big payout independent events, whether it be grudge, no time, all steel, all glass, radial, little gangsters, plates and 28s. I mean, just get war in the woods. Just keep naming all these events.
And when you mention all of those, I think of like cultural events in the sport of drag racing, things that are like significant happenings amongst this community. People want to be there, whether they're racing or not. They want to be involved. They want to be guilty by association. They want to, you know, get their picture taken, what have you, saying that they were on the property during this event. And I feel like I forecasted many years ago that we were seeing a move towards independent events, where I just felt like with the cost, you know, continually rising. I mean, that was, you know, I was talking about this 10 years ago, gas prices were going crazy and everything was going up. Travel has gone up. All these things have gotten more expensive. It just felt like the tide was changing, and we were going to see less people committing to a touring series, whether it was regional or national. And we were going to see more people getting, you know, excited about, you know, kind of selecting a handful of big events that they were going to go to, and then racing locally or getting in where they fit in the rest of the time. So I definitely think we're in the era of the big independent event. That, to me, seems to be the recipe. I think a series, like you said, if you have some nuances to it, where like our events, they're all in the same place and all during the same time of year, and they're all tightly packaged. I think about what Piedmont's doing, what with the Big Dog Shootout, what Rockingham's doing with Pro Mods at the Rock. I mean, a monthly program, things like that. I think will be strong, but they will all kind of serve to support these big tent pole events that happen throughout the year. It is interesting, though, and I don't know what the NHRA. I always tell people whenever anybody talks to me about business, it's always like every successful business is rooted in solving a problem. And right now, there's not a problem to solve for Pro Modified. I mean, if you look at the sport, there's a lot of great places to run these cars. I mean, you can race in PDRA 8 times a year. You can run Midwest 8 times a year. You can run the Winter Series, and now you're at 11 races if you run them all. And that's plenty of drag racing, damn near one a month. You know, NHRA Pro Mod
is, I don't think Pro Mod is a concern. I think if you're looking at IHRA to solve a problem, it'd be to be another tier or whatever for all those other classes.
Sportsman racing, which I think are the people that are probably
alcohol classes thrived under IHRA. They were the show. Alcohol classes, alcohol funny car was their nitro funny car, and they treated it that way in a lot of ways. And those guys that ran over there were like superstars, in addition to Pro Mod and Top Fuel. And so, but now look at alcohol. I actually had some conversations with some alcohol racers. A lot of those are on our list usually to go around and shoot photos with Rick Belden. Nate gives us the edit list, and we spend a lot of time over there in the alcohol pits, and actually stumbled on a conversation with someone about that, about, you know, what's happening with alcohol racing and the scheduling, the car counts, you know, kind of always getting their sessions pushed. They're running late at night or early in the morning when no fans are there. So you start to look at even a class like that, which I would consider just right there on the cusp of a pro class, and sort of how, you know, maybe they would take to an IHRA. Or you look at a lot of these other classes that are outside of Pro Mod. I think door car racing is not having a problem anywhere. But
that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's like we've had a lot of pressure on us, like, oh, you guys should do more races. And it's like, well, there's not a problem to solve. We solved a problem with the Winter Series.
Already. We were worried about doing what we were doing. And when people are talking about let's do races in the spring and summer and fall, you're right. It kind of would create an additional scheduling conflict. But these other classes are kind of still out there looking for an alternative.
Well, I mean, and the problem, like the thing that I think will be a problem for the IHRA is that if they're trying to build like if they're trying to replicate what NHRA is doing, I mean, the NHRA is struggling with full fields and Top Fuel and Funny Car right now, and participation in pro stock, while healthy, isn't what it was last year or the year before. And there's clearly some changing happening in that scene. So it is a little bit like you've got to look for where the opportunity is and what problem there is to solve. And if there was one to solve, I would say that it's probably in the alcohol ranks, you know, with those guys not really being treated the way they deserve to be treated at NHRA. I think the Midwest Series did a good job of bringing in funny car, you know, top alcohol funny car. They promote it as funny car. It's not treated as any sort of secondary category. It's part of the show. They run right there with Pro Mod at the end of the night. I mean, they do their level best. They pay good money, but it's 8th mile racing, and it seems to have, you know, struggled to really catch fire with that group of racers that have spent a lifetime racing quarter mile. So I don't know, man. It's a really, really, really precarious situation because
we'll see what comes of it. I mean, I feel like the news is rolling out every day from IHRA, good or bad. So we'll see what comes of it next, and maybe where we are at the end of the season, and what the landscape looks like going into next season. But it's just been a wild ride with the IHRA deal, like with the, you know, the PRI deal, and then the Kenny Nowling thing. And then when that went, you know, they got rid of Kenny. I feel like everybody pretty much threw Kenny under the bus, or thought that he was the issue or whatever. And then now we've just kind of seen that same thing continue on. And so that's been the surprising part to me, is that we thought that was going to be the end of that. And then now it's just continued on with almost every hire they've made. So very interesting, and we'll see what continues to happen.
I wish him nothing but the best, because again, I think that the sport of drag racing was at its best when the IHRA was healthy. And if they can get back to that point, I don't know, you know, but I do think that, you know, the sport would be better with them here. And I'm hoping that it all works out for the best. I really do. I mean, there's some great tracks that have, you know, taken on the IHRA umbrella. They've got a significant list of member tracks already. So it would be great to see, you know,
and adding to it with the tracks they bought. I think that's a concern too. You got a great facility like Galat that was just purchased. You know, a lot of people really want to see that facility succeed and continue to thrive like it has been. So, you know, there's definitely some a lot of people behind it, in the lot at play and a lot at stake as this continues to evolve.
No, it's going to be interesting to watch it unfold. And I appreciate Bobby putting out that editorial. Just like it's been a difficult thing to report on, you know, and a difficult thing to kind of watch from afar. Even when you know things, it's typically, most of it's off the record. There's not a lot of people willing to speak on the record about what's happening. So I appreciate somebody being willing to stick their neck out there and say their piece. But Mike, JT, Blake, the whole team, thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate you. Remember, we've got a goal of 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. So make sure you smash that subscribe button, click the bell so you get notified every time we post a new video. And we will see you next Wednesday right here on the Drag Illustrated social media channels and Drag Illustrated YouTube channel. We'll be breaking down the PDRA Mid-Atlantic Showdown coming up at Virginia Motorsports Park and previewing the NHRA Route 66 Nationals in Chicago, man. So we will talk to you soon. Thanks, guys.
Yep. See y'all next week.